What if Infinity and Master Chief entered the Stargate Atlantis universe? The sensors screamed their impossible warning across Atlantis's control room at 0347 hours, jolting the night shift into crisis mode. Dr. Rodney McKay stumbled from the auxiliary lab, still holding a cold cup of coffee, his irritation at the interrupted calculation evaporating the moment he saw the energy signature blooming on the long-range display. It shouldn't exist. The readings showed a spatial tear opening in high orbit above Lantia, but this wasn't a Wraith Hive dropping out of hyperspace or an ancient ship activating the subspace distortion. Looked like something had punched through reality itself from another dimension entirely. "That's not possible," McKay muttered, fingers already flying across the ancient console. The holographic display expanded, showing energy curves that violated every principle of hyperspace physics he understood. Whatever was coming through wasn't using any propulsion system in the Pegasus database. "Should I wake Colonel Shepard?" Major Evan Lorne asked from the operations station, hand already reaching for the comm. "Yes, and get everyone to the control room. This signature is..." McKay's voice died as the object finished its translation into normal space. The sensors recalibrated 3 times before accepting the data as real. "That can't be right. It reads as 5.7 kilometers long." The thing that emerged from the dimensional rift dwarfed anything McKay had ever seen. It wasn't elegant like an ancient city ship, or organic like a Wraith Hive. The vessel was a brutal, geometric statement of military purpose, a wedge-shaped leviathan bristling with what his tactical subroutines identified as hundreds of weapons emplacements. Hull plating covered every surface in overlapping armor sections, and the energy shields flickering around its frame registered power outputs that made Atlantis's own defensive screen look anemic. Massive, angular letters ran along the bow section. UNSC Infinity. "Rodney, please tell me that's not a new kind of Wraith ship." Lieutenant Colonel John Shepard's voice came over the comm, rough with interrupted sleep. "It's definitely not Wraith. It's not Ancient, Asgard, Traveler, or anything in our database. The technology profile is completely unknown, but..." McKay pulled up a comparative analysis, his scientific mind racing ahead of his mouth. "The power generation principles are familiar. Very familiar. Shepard, whoever built this, understands zero-point energy manipulation almost as well as the Ancients did." "Almost?" Taylor Emagon's calm voice joined the channel as the team assembled. "I said almost. The implementation is different, cruder in some ways, more aggressive in others. It's like they reverse-engineered ancient principles and built something designed purely for combat. And before you ask, yes, I'm detecting life signs, thousands of them, all human." Shepard arrived in the control room within minutes, hair askew but fully armed, Ronan Dex and Taylor flanking him. The Cetadan warrior studied the holographic display with the expression of a man cataloging a new threat. That ship could carry enough soldiers to overwhelm the city. "Which is why we're not going to let it get that far," Shepard said. He turned to McKay. "Any communication attempts?" "Multiple frequencies, but they're not responding to our hail. Either they can't hear us, or they're being cautious." McKay highlighted a cluster of smaller energy signatures separating from the massive vessel. "And now they're launching fighters." "Correction, those aren't fighters. The energy profiles are too small for..." "Wait." His eyes widened. Shepard, one of those smaller signatures, just activated what looks like an ancient puddle jumper's cloaking field. "They have cloaking technology." "Great. An unknown supership with thousands of people and stealth fighters." Shepard grabbed a radio headset. "Gate room. This is Shepard. Lock down the city to condition yellow. I want a jumper prepped and ready in Bay 3. He glanced at his team. "We're going to say hello before they decide we're hostile." The puddle jumper launched 8 minutes later. Shepard at the controls with his team and McKay arguing over sensor readings in the rear compartment. As they approached the massive warship, McKay's instruments went haywire trying to categorize what they were seeing. The hull composition registered as titanium-based alloys reinforced with materials he couldn't identify, and the weapon systems included both kinetic accelerators and what appeared to be magnetic launching systems on a scale that defied belief. "Rodney, I'm getting pinged by their sensors," Shepard said. "Multiple targeting locks just lit up. Don't do anything aggressive. I'm broadcasting our IFF codes and every peaceful greeting protocol in the ancient database." McKay's fingers danced across his tablet. "If they're human, they should recognize— Wait, I'm getting a response. Audio only." The voice that came through the jumper's comm system was professional, controlled, and utterly unfamiliar with the clipped precision of military training from a force McKay had never encountered. "Unknown vessel. This is UNSC Infinity Actual. You are approaching a United Nations Space Command warship. Identify yourself immediately, or we will be forced to engage." Shepard and McKay exchanged glances. United Nations Space Command, Earth. But not their Earth, or at least not any Earth organization either of them had ever heard of. UNSC Infinity. This is Lieutenant Colonel John Shepard of the Atlantis Expedition, representing Earth and the Pegasus Galaxy Coalition. We're human. We're friendly. And we'd really like to know how you got here. Shepard kept his voice casual, but his hand stayed near the weapons controls. The silence stretched for 15 seconds. Then, "Atlantis? As in the lost city of the ancients?" "Colonel Shepard, this is Captain Thomas Lasky. We have a situation here. Our slipspace drive malfunctioned during a jump, and we're reading stellar positions that don't match any known UNSC navigation charts. We're also detecting that we're in another galaxy entirely." A pause. "And you just said, you represent Earth." "Long story," Shepard replied. "How about you let us come aboard, and we'll explain how Stargates work, why there are humans in the Pegasus Galaxy, and what exactly has been trying to eat us for the past few years. In exchange, you can tell us what the UNSC is and why you've got a ship the size of a small city." McKay was already scanning the vessel's interior layout, his scientific curiosity overriding his usual paranoia. The ship wasn't just large, it was a mobile military base, complete with crew quarters, armories, vehicle bays, and what looked like entire sections dedicated to— "Shepard, I'm picking up armored infantry signatures. A lot of them. And the power armor they're wearing makes the ancient personal shields look primitive." "Captain Lasky," Shepard continued, "we're going to transmit our gate address and coordinates for Atlantis. You're welcome to send a delegation down to the city. We've got a lot to discuss, and something tells me we're going to need each other before this is over." Another pause. Then Lasky's voice returned, and McKay could hear the weight of command in it, the sound of an officer who just realized his ship and crew were stranded impossibly far from home. "Agreed, Colonel. I'm dispatching a Pelican dropship with a Marine security detail and our senior staff. And Colonel, I'm sending our best asset to lead the ground team. If this is a hostile situation, you'll know very quickly." "Understood. Atlantis out." As the jumper swung back toward the city, Ronan leaned forward from the rear compartment. "What do you think their best asset is?" McKay was still analyzing the data streams. "According to these power signatures, they've got personnel on that ship wearing battle armor that could probably shrug off a staff weapon blast. Reinforced skeletal structure. Enhanced musculature based on the movement profiles. Shepard, I think they've got some kind of super soldiers." "Of course they do," Shepard muttered. "Because this week wasn't interesting enough already." The Pelican dropship that descended toward Atlantis's East Pier 40 minutes later was a blunt, functional troop carrier that looked like it had been designed by someone who viewed aesthetics as a waste of resources. It touched down with hydraulic precision, rear hatch lowering to reveal a squad of Marines in combat armor, their weapons trained outward in a defensive perimeter that would have made any SG team proud. But it was the figure that emerged behind them that made everyone on the pier take an involuntary step back. He stood over 7 feet tall in armor that gleamed green gold under Lantea's sun. The MJOL LARL-powered assault suit made its wearer look like a walking tank, all angular plates and integrated weapon systems. A golden visor reflected the ancient spires behind Shepard's welcoming party, revealing nothing of the face beneath. Every movement radiated controlled lethality, the efficiency of someone who'd spent decades turning warfare into an art form. The armored giant's posture shifted slightly as he scanned the city, the kind of tactical assessment Shepard recognized from a lifetime of military operations. When he spoke, the voice was calm, professional, and carried the weight of countless battles. "Lieutenant Colonel Shepard, I'm Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, UNSC Navy. On behalf of Captain Lasky and the crew of Infinity, I'm here to establish peaceful contact and determine our current tactical situation." He took one step forward, and Shepard noticed the way Ronan's hand drifted toward his particle magnum, a fighter recognizing another apex predator. "We appreciate you coming in person, Master Chief," Shepard replied, extending his hand. "Welcome to Atlantis. We've got a lot to talk about." The Master Chief's helmet tilted slightly, processing the ancient architecture surrounding him, the Stargate visible through the open gate room doors, the mix of Earth and alien personnel moving through the city corridors. When his hand clasped Shepard's, the strength was carefully measured power held in check by discipline. "Agreed. But first, Colonel," the Chief's visor turned toward the Stargate. "I need you to explain exactly what that is, and why Captain Lasky's sensors are detecting similar devices on over 1,000 planets in this galaxy." McKay couldn't help himself. "Oh, this is going to be fun. Chief, have you ever heard of a little thing called a wormhole? If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below." Indeed. The briefing room on Atlantis' main tower had hosted first contact sessions with dozens of alien species, but McKay doubted any had been quite as surreal as watching Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 process the existence of Stargates. The Spartan sat with absolute stillness, his armored form too large for the ancient-designed chairs, while Shepard walked him through 30 years of Earthscape program, compressed into a 20-minute overview that hit the critical points: ancient alien race, galaxy-spanning transportation network, parasitic false gods, vampire-like wraith feeding on humans for 10 millennia. Captain Lasky had joined via holographic link from Infinity, his image projected by UNSC technology that made even McKay grudgingly impressed. The captain was younger than Shepard expected, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd commanded Earth's most powerful warship through serious combat. Two other figures flanked him in the projection, a dark-skinned woman in Science Division colors who McKay immediately identified as a kindred spirit, and an older man with commander's insignia who radiated tactical competence. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Lasky said, his holographic fingers steepled as he processed the information. "You're telling us that we're in the Pegasus Galaxy, approximately 3 million light-years from Earth, in what appears to be an entirely different universe from our own, and the primary threat here is an alien species that literally feeds on human life force." "That's the short version," Shepard confirmed. "The Wraith have been culling human populations across Pegasus for about 10,000 years. We've been fighting them since we got here, keeping them from reaching Earth through the Stargate network." The woman in the hologram, Commander Palmer, according to the introduction, leaned forward. "And you said this city, Atlantis, was built by the Ancients? A precursor race that achieved a level of technology comparable to what we've seen from the Forerunners?" McKay's head snapped up. "Who? Forerunners?" "Ancient alien civilization in our universe that built galaxy-spanning installations and achieved what we'd classify as Tier 1 technological status, before disappearing about 100,000 years ago." The science officer, Dr. Glassman, pulled up schematics on his own tablet. "The UNSC has been reverse engineering their technology for years. Our slipspace drives, energy shields, even parts of Infinity's power core are based on Forerunner principles we've barely begun to understand. That's... McKay's brain shifted into overdrive. That's fascinating and terrifying. The ancients ascended to a higher plane of existence about 10,000 years ago, leaving behind technology that we're still trying to figure out. If your Forerunners achieved similar levels and then vanished, he trailed off, the implications racing ahead. Master Chief's helmet turned toward the Stargate visible through the briefing room windows. Captain, the strategic implications are significant. If the gate network connects thousands of worlds, we're looking at a transportation system that makes slipspace obsolete for regional movement. The tactical applications alone are enormous. Yes, Lasky interrupted, though not unkindly. But Chief, we need to focus on our immediate situation. Commander Palmer, what's our status? The Spartan 4 commander's hologram consulted a datapad. Slipspace drive is completely offline, sir. Engineering teams report that the spatial transition damaged the Shaw Fujikawa generators beyond our ability to repair without dry dock facilities. We're stuck here unless we can find an alternative FTL method or repair capabilities that don't exist in our supply manifest. Which brings us to the reason we're having this conversation, Shepard said, leaning back in his chair with the casual posture that McKay knew meant he was thinking 3 steps ahead. You need our help to either get home or survive in Pegasus. We need to know whether that ship of yours represents a threat or an asset to Atlantis' mission. Our mission is to protect humanity, Chief said simply. The absolute certainty in his synthesized voice made it a statement of fact rather than negotiation. If the Wraith are culling human populations, then our objectives align. But we need intelligence, threat assessment, tactical capabilities, cultural context. Ronan, who'd been silent until now, spoke up from his position against the wall. The Wraith are hunters. They seed human populations across the galaxy, let them grow for generations, then return to cull them like cattle. Hive ships the size of cities, thousands of warriors per ship. Dozens of hives are active at any time. His scarred face showed the memory of 7 years running from Wraith tracking parties. They're fast, strong, and they regenerate damage almost instantly. Standard weapons barely slow them down. The Master Chief processed this information with the stillness of a machine running combat calculations. Regeneration rates, weaknesses, effective countermeasures. Energy weapons work better than kinetic rounds, Taylor offered. Our standard sidearm is the Wraith Stunner modified from their own technology. Killing them requires significant trauma or sustained fire. They have organic technology, ships grown rather than built, weapons that are extensions of their biology. McKay pulled up tactical footage on the briefing room display, Wraith warriors swarming through corridors, their pale faces twisted in feeding hunger, clawed hands draining the life from screaming victims. They feed through an enzyme transfer process in their palms. Victims age decades in seconds. The Wraith gains strength, healing, and sustenance from absorbed life force. It's not just food, it's their entire biology, culture, and military strategy. Commander Palmer's holographic image showed disgust. That's horrific. That's Pegasus, Shepard said flatly. Welcome to the galaxy, Captain Lasky. It gets worse before it gets better. Dr. Glassman had been studying the ancient console interfaces with barely concealed fascination. Colonel Shepard, these control systems, they're responding to your touch without any apparent authentication protocol. How is that possible? Ancient gene, McKay explained, unable to suppress his enthusiasm despite the grim topic. The ancients designed most of their technology to respond only to carriers of a specific genetic marker. Shepard has a natural expression of the gene, one of the strongest we've encountered. It's why he can fly their ships, activate their weapons, and interface with city systems that the rest of us need gene therapy to access. The Master Chief stood abruptly, moving to the window overlooking Atlantis' central tower. Even through the armor, McKay could sense the analytical process occurring, cataloging defensive positions, calculating fields of fire, assessing the city's military value. This facility is a strategic asset beyond anything in UNSC inventory. Ancient technology, gate access, established infrastructure. If the Wraith learns that Infinity is here... They already know, Ronan said. A ship that size? Every hive within sensor range detected your arrival. They'll be coming. How long? The chief asked. Days. Maybe a week if we're lucky, Shepard replied. The Wraith don't coordinate well between hives. Too much political infighting and competition for feeding territories. But a target like Infinity? 17,000 humans in one convenient package? That's worth forming a temporary alliance. Lasky's hologram flickered as he stood aboard Infinity's bridge. Then we need to establish a defensive perimeter and begin coordinating our forces. Colonel Shepard, what are Atlantis's current military capabilities? We've got the city's shield powered by a ZPM, which is essentially an ancient battery with more juice than your ship's reactors could generate in a century. Drone weapons that can take down hive ships if we have enough of them. A complement of puddle jumpers with ancient drone armaments. And about 200 military and science personnel, most with combat experience against the Wraith. Shepard's expression turned serious. Captain, we can hold against individual hive ships, maybe even 2 or 3. But if they come in force, then we combine our assets, Lasky said decisively. Chief, I want you to coordinate with Colonel Shepard's team. Get a full tactical assessment of Atlantis's defenses and begin integration protocols. Palmer works with their military staff on joint training exercises. Glassman, you're working with Dr. McKay on technology analysis. See if we can find compatibility points between UNSC and ancient systems. Captain, Chief interrupted. Recommend I request additional Spartan assets. If Wraith ground forces are as dangerous as described, we'll need our best operators for urban defense scenarios. Agreed. I'm dispatching Fireteam Majestic and Crimson to Atlantis for security operations. Palmer, that puts you groundside as well. The Spartangent 4 commander's grin was wolfish. Understood, sir. I've been wanting to see this city up close anyway. McKay held up a hand like an eager student. Before we get too deep into military planning, can I just say that I have about 6,000 questions about your technology? Slipspace drives, energy shield configurations, those magnetic accelerator cannons I saw on your ship's spine. Dr. McKay, Dr. Glassman's hologram matched McKay's enthusiasm perfectly. I have an equal number of questions about zero-point modules, ancient material science, and how exactly a wormhole maintains stable, traversable geometry without Hawking radiation destroying anything that enters it. Oh, I like him, McKay said to Shepard. Can we keep him? Rodney, focus, Shepard chided, though he was smiling. He turned back to the Master Chief. How much of your crew needs to know about the Stargate program? In our experience, the more people who know about ancient technology, the more likely someone decides to try using it without proper safety protocols. UNSC personnel are trained to handle xenoarchaeology protocols, Chief replied. We've been reverse engineering Forerunner artifacts for decades, but operational security is paramount. I recommend limiting initial gate access to cleared personnel only. Taylor, who had been observing the UNSC officers with her characteristic diplomacy, spoke carefully. Master Chief, there is another consideration. The Pegasus Galaxy contains thousands of human civilizations, many primitive by your standards, some quite advanced. The Wraith's culling has shaped their development for millennia. How will the UNSC's presence affect that balance? It was a pointed question, and McKay saw Shepard's subtle nod of approval. Trust Taylor to cut through military posturing and ask about cultural impact. The chief was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his tone carried the weight of experience. The UNSC Office of Naval Intelligence has protocols for first contact scenarios and minimizing cultural contamination. We've dealt with colony worlds isolated for generations, societies that developed independently from Earth. But, he turned to face Taylor directly, I'm a soldier, not a diplomat. My expertise is in eliminating threats to humanity, not managing interstellar politics. Then you'll fit right in with our team, Ronan said with dark humor. We're better at shooting things than talking to them too. Speak for yourself, Shepard protested. I'm an excellent diplomat. I've only started 3 interplanetary incidents this year. 4, McKay corrected. You're forgetting the trade negotiation on M4X337 where you accidentally proposed marriage to the village elder's daughter. That was a cultural misunderstanding. The Master Chief's helmet tilted slightly. McKay was learning to read the subtle body language as amusement. Good. The Spartan could recognize humor under pressure. That boded well for integration. Captain Lasky's hologram brought the room back to focus. Gentlemen and ladies, we can discuss cultural protocols once we're certain we'll survive long enough to need them. Colonel Shepard, I'm formally requesting permission to establish a UNSC liaison office in Atlantis and begin coordinating our defense strategies. In exchange, Infinity's resources are at your disposal. Medical facilities, manufacturing capabilities, our Marine and Spartan complements. Shepard glanced at his team, reading their subtle signals. Taylor's slight nod, Ronan's grunt of approval, McKay's frantic nodding that screamed, "Say yes so I can get access to their technology." Agreed, Captain. Welcome to the Pegasus Galaxy. Try not to get culled. We'll do our best, Lasky replied. His hologram flickered. Chief, you have operational authority groundside. Coordinate with Atlantis Command and prepare defensive positions. Infinity will maintain high orbit and run continuous sensor sweeps. If the Wraith are coming, I want advance warning. Understood, sir. The Master Chief turned to Shepard. Colonel, I'll need a full briefing on Wraith tactics, capabilities, and known hive locations. Also, a tour of Atlantis' defensive systems and any strategic choke points. I can do you one better, Shepard said, standing. How do you feel about a live demonstration? We've got a scheduled mission to P3X774 this afternoon. Agricultural world. Human population. Recently reported Wraith scout activity. Should give you a first-hand look at what we're dealing with. The Chief's posture shifted into something that McKay recognized as anticipation. The Spartan had been sitting in a briefing room absorbing tactical data, but his nature demanded action, see the threat, assess it personally, develop countermeasures through direct experience. When do we leave? 2 hours. That gives you time to prepare your gear and get familiar with gate travel. Shepard's grin turned slightly predatory. Fair warning, Chief. Your first trip through a wormhole is going to feel really weird. Try not to throw up in your helmet. I've been flash-cloned, cryogenically frozen for years, and dropped from orbit in a pod. I think I can handle a wormhole. McKay snorted. That's what everyone says. Then they experience having their molecules disassembled, transmitted as energy across thousands of light years, and reassembled on the other side. 50-50 odds you lose your lunch. I'll take those odds, the Master Chief replied. As the briefing broke up and the UNSC holographic officers winked out, McKay cornered Shepard in the corridor outside. You know this is insane, right? We're taking a 7-foot-tall super soldier in experimental power armor through the Stargate to face Wraith scouts on an unverified threat assessment. Yep. And you think this is a good idea? Shepard's expression was unreadable. Rodney, we've got a warship the size of a city full of people who've never heard of Wraith, ancient technology, or the Stargate program. If the Chief is their best operator, I need to know what he can do when things go sideways. Because if the Wraith comes for Infinity, and they will, that Spartan is going to be the difference between this being a defensive victory or a massacre. McKay considered this. Fair point. I'm still coming along to document this. Wouldn't have it any other way. 2 hours later, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 stood in Atlantis' gate room, watching McKay dial the 7th chevron. The Stargate erupted in its unstable vortex before settling into the shimmering event horizon that looked like water held vertically by forces that violated conventional physics. Shepard clapped a hand on the Spartan's armored shoulder. "Welcome to the Stargate program, Chief. Try to keep up." And they stepped through together into the unknown. The rematerialization on P3X774 took exactly 2.3 seconds, according to the Master Chief's HUD chronometer, but the subjective experience felt simultaneously instantaneous and eternal, a moment of complete dissolution followed by perfect reconstruction. His Mjolnir armor's diagnostics ran automatically, checking every system for integrity after molecular transmission. Everything registered green. Impressive technology, even by Forerunner standards. The world they emerged onto was pastoral, in a way that reminded Chief of childhood memories from before the augmentations. Rolling farmland stretched toward distant forests, crops growing in neat terraced rows on hillsides. A settlement of perhaps 300 people occupied the valley below the Stargate's raised platform, stone buildings with thatched roofs arranged around a central square. Pre-industrial, maybe early Renaissance-era development. Humans living simple lives under an alien sun. Shepard's team spread out in a practiced defensive formation, P-90S ready but not raised. The colonel moved with casual competence that Chief recognized from years serving alongside ODSTs and Marines, a career soldier comfortable in his own skin, experienced enough to know when to be alert versus paranoid. MALP telemetry was clean, McKay reported, consulting a tablet computer that looked like ancient technology miniaturized. No Wraith signatures, no DART activity in the past 72 hours. But the village elder reported seeing lights in the sky 3 nights ago, which usually means scout patrols. Taylor moved to the front of the group, her bearing shifting into something diplomatic and warm. "I will speak with the village council. They know me from previous visits. We established a trade agreement for their grain 6 months ago. Ronan and I will do a perimeter sweep," Shepard said, then glanced at the Master Chief. "Chief, you're with McKay. I want you to see what Wraith technology looks like in the field if they left any traces. Rodney can explain what you're looking at." "Understood." Chief fell into step beside McKay as the scientist headed toward the forest line, already scanning with handheld sensors that pinged softly. "So," McKay began conversationally, "how does gate travel compare to your slipspace jumps? Better? Worse? Slightly nauseating but ultimately manageable?" "Efficient," Chief replied. His motion tracker showed Shepard and Ronan moving east, Taylor descending toward the village. Instantaneous travel across interstellar distances without requiring a ship. The strategic implications are significant. "Yes, well, the ancients were rather good at that sort of thing. Building galaxy-spanning infrastructure that makes modern humanity look like we're playing with sticks." McKay's scanner chirped, and he frowned. "I'm getting trace energy signatures consistent with Wraith enzyme residue. This way." They moved into the tree line, and Chief's threat assessment protocols automatically cataloged potential ambush points, fields of fire, and defensive positions. The forest was dense but navigable. Native species similar enough to Earth flora to suggest either convergent evolution or deliberate seeding by the ancients. McKay led them to a small clearing where the underbrush showed signs of disturbance. "There," he said, pointing to scorch marks on several tree trunks. "Wraith stunner fire. They were here recently, probably within the past 48 hours. Chief knelt, examining the blast patterns. The energy dispersion suggested directed energy weapons with lower thermal output than plasma rifles, but significant kinetic impact. What's the effective range? About 30 meters for accurate fire, 50 if they don't care about precision. The stunners deliver a neuroelectric shock that overloads the nervous system, drops a human in one hit, 2 if you're particularly hardy or hopped up on adrenaline." McKay's scanner swept the area. Not detecting any Wraith biologics, so they didn't leave bodies behind. Probably just a scouting party checking population levels before calling in a culling run. "Culling run," Chief repeated, the tactical terminology making his stomach tighten even through years of emotional conditioning. "They treat humans like livestock." I know it's horrific. We've been fighting it for years. But the scale... McKay trailed off, his usual bluster fading into something haunted. There are thousands of human worlds in Pegasus, Chief. Millions of people. The Wraith wake up every few decades, cull a percentage of the population, then go back into hibernation. It's been happening for 10,000 years. We save one world, and 3 others are getting hit. We destroy one hive, and 5 more are active. The mathematics are brutally simple. We're losing. The Chief understood that kind of math. He lived it during the Human Covenant War when entire colonies were glassed and billions died while the UNSC fought a losing battle against superior technology and numbers. Until now, he said quietly, Infinity changes the equation. Does it? McKay's skepticism was sharp. Your ship is impressive, absolutely. But you're talking about one vessel against potentially dozens of hive ships. Each hive carries thousands of warriors, regeneration capabilities, organic technology that adapts to threats. Your magnetic accelerator cannons might punch through their hulls, but can Infinity survive sustained assault from multiple hives simultaneously? That's what I'm here to determine, Chief replied. If we understand their capabilities, we can develop countermeasures. That's how the UNSC survived the Covenant, analyze the enemy, adapt our tactics, exploit weaknesses. McKay's expression shifted into grudging respect. You know, that's actually a reasonable approach. Most soldiers I work with just want to shoot things and worry about the science later. He gestured with his scanner. Come on, I'm detecting more traces deeper in the forest. Might be a feeding site. They found it 10 minutes later, a small clearing that made even the Master Chief's carefully regulated emotional responses flare with anger. 3 bodies lay among the undergrowth, aged beyond recognition. What had been young farmers were now withered husks, flesh sunken against bone, clothing hanging loose on frames that had lost decades of life in minutes. The faces were frozen in expressions of terminal horror. Wraith feeding, McKay said quietly, his usual sarcasm completely absent. This is what they do, Chief. This is why we fight. Chief knelt beside the nearest victim, his armor's medical scanners analyzing the remains. The biometric data was obscene cellular degradation consistent with extreme aging, enzyme traces in the dermal tissue, evidence of life force extraction through some kind of biological process his database couldn't classify. How long ago? Based on the decomposition rate and environmental factors. 20 to 30 hours. Recently. McKay's hands clenched on his scanner. The village probably doesn't even know yet. These were likely farmers working outlying fields, grabbed by a Wraith scouting party doing recon before the main culling force arrives. We need to warn the settlement, Chief said, standing. If scouts were here yesterday, the hive ships could arrive within days. Already on it. McKay was typing rapidly on his tablet, sending a priority message to Atlantis. Shepard will want to evacuate the population or establish defensive positions. He paused. Though, honestly, defending against a full culling run with the personnel we have on-world would be suicide. The best option is evacuation through the gate. Chief's motion tracker pinged contacts approaching fast from the south. Multiple signatures, moving with inhuman speed through the forest. We've got company. 30 meters and closing. McKay's face went pale. Oh no, no. Those are Wraith biosignatures. How did they must have left a patrol behind. Get behind me, Chief ordered, raising his MA-5D assault rifle. The familiar weight of the weapon was reassuring, even as his HUD painted targeting reticles over the approaching contacts. How many? 4. No, 5. Moving fast, Chief. They're really fast. The Wraith burst from the tree line like nightmares given form. They were humanoid, but wrong pale skin with a corpse-like pallor, white hair wild around faces that mixed predatory features with something almost human. Dark leather coats hung from their frames, and they moved with fluid grace that reminded the chief of Sankali warriors. Each carried a wrist-mounted weapon that McKay had called a stunner. The lead Wraith snarled something in a guttural language and raised its feeding hand, the palm splitting open to reveal an orifice that pulsed with bioluminescent menace. The chief opened fire. The MA-5D barked in controlled 3-round bursts, 7.62 millimeters armor-piercing rounds stitching across the lead Wraith's torso. The creature staggered, green blood spraying from the impacts, but it didn't go down. It regenerated before Chief's eyes, flesh knitting together, wounds closing in seconds. "Told you they regenerate!" McKay shouted from behind a tree. "Sustained fire! Don't let up!" Chief adjusted tactics instantly, switching to full automatic and concentrating fire on the lead Wraith's center mass. 30 rounds punched through the creature in rapid succession, the kinetic impact finally overwhelming its regeneration. The Wraith collapsed, its body too damaged to heal fast enough. The other four spread out with tactical awareness that surprised him. These weren't mindless monsters, but trained warriors executing flanking maneuvers. Stunner blasts crackled past Chief's position, one catching his shield and draining it by 15%. The energy signature was different from Covenant plasma, but equally dangerous. "Chief!" McKay threw something, an ancient stun grenade from his vest. Chief caught it reflexively and hurled it toward the left flanking pair. The device detonated with a blue-white flash and a concussive pulse that dropped both Wraith momentarily. The chief pressed the advantage, charging the stunned enemies before they could recover. His armored boot caught the first Wraith in the chest, with enough force to shatter its sternum, the crack of breaking bone audible even through his audio filters. The second Wraith lunged at him with its feeding hand extended, and Chief grabbed the creature's wrist, his Mjolnir's enhanced strength letting him hold the deadly palm away from his armor. The Wraith hissed, trying to break free, its other hand clawing at Chief's helmet. He could see the feeding orifice pulsing, seeking contact with his flesh. Instead, Chief drove his combat knife into the creature's throat and twisted. Green blood fountains, and the Wraith's regeneration struggled against the catastrophic damage. Chief fired his rifle point-blank into its skull, ending the struggle. The remaining two Wraith reassessed their tactical situation, 3 of their number dead or dying, 1 armored human standing unfazed. They made a choice that Chief recognized from countless battles: retreat to report, rather than die uselessly. They ran with inhuman speed, disappearing into the forest faster than Chief could acquire a clean shot. "Let them go," McKay said, emerging from cover. "If you chase Wraith through the forest, you're asking to get ambushed. Besides, we got what we needed: confirmation that scouts are still active, and now they know we're here." The chief examined his armor's diagnostics. Shield at 78% and recharging. Ammunition expenditure, 93 rounds. Enemy neutralized, 3 confirmed kills. Acceptable exchange ratio. You said they regenerate from most damage. What's required for a clean kill? Massive trauma to vital organs, decapitation, or sustained fire that overwhelms their healing factor. They're tough, but not invincible. McKay was already scanning the dead Wraith with his equipment. Your armor-piercing rounds worked better than I expected, enough kinetic impact to disrupt their biology faster than they could compensate. Chief's radio crackled, Shepard's voice cutting through. "McKay, Chief, we heard gunfire. Status?" "Engaged 5 Wraith scouts," Chief reported. 3 Kia, 2 retreated. Recommend immediate evacuation of the settlement. The Wraith knows we're here now." "Damn it!" Shepard's frustration was evident. "Taylor's talking with the village council, but they're stubborn about leaving their homes. Chief, how long do we have?" "Unknown. But if those scouts report back to their hive, we could be looking at a culling run within hours." McKay's scanner shrieked in alarm. "Shepard, I'm picking up hyperspace windows opening in orbit. Multiple contacts. Oh, this is bad. This is really, really bad." Chief's HUD, linked to McKay's scanner data and his tactical analysis subroutines, processed the information with cold efficiency. 3 Wraith Hive ships dropping out of hyperspace directly above P3X-774. Each vessel reading at over 3 kilometers in length, organic biosignatures consistent with living ships, and power outputs suggesting significant weapons capability. "Chief," Shepard's voice was tight. "Welcome to a Wraith culling. Hope you brought enough ammo." The first Wraith darts began their descent toward the planet's surface like a swarm of metallic insects, and Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 did what Spartans did best. He adapted to the mission parameters and prepared to hold the line. The village erupted into chaos as the first Wraith darts screamed overhead, their distinctive insectoid silhouettes casting shadows across the terraced farmland. Chief's audio filters picked up the screams even from half a kilometer away, the sound of a population that had lived in fear of this moment for generations, finally seeing their nightmare descend from the sky. "Gate room, this is Shepard." The colonel's voice crackled over the radio, steady despite the crisis. "We've got 3 hive ships in orbit and darts inbound. We need immediate evacuation protocols for approximately 300 civilians. Spin up the gate and get ready for a hot extraction." "Understood, Colonel," came the response from Atlantis. "The gate is active. Send your IDC now." Chief and McKay sprinted toward the village, the scientist struggling to keep pace even as Chief modulated his speed to account for the unaugmented human. His motion tracker lit up with Contact's dozens of darts converging on the settlement from multiple vectors, executing a classic envelopment pattern designed to prevent escape and maximize capture efficiency. "McKay, what are those darts' primary weapons?" the chief asked, cataloging targets and calculating engagement priorities. "Culling beams," McKay gasped between breaths. "They don't shoot, they dematerialize people and store them in the dart's hold, alive, for feeding later. If we don't get these people through the gate, they're going to wake up in a Wraith Hive being used as cattle." Chief's HUD tracked the nearest dart as it descended toward the village square where panicked civilians were scattering. The craft was organic in design, flowing curves that suggested grown rather than built, pulsing with bioluminescent energy. Its underbelly split open, and a beam of white light lanced down, engulfing a family of 4. They vanished in an instant, dematerialized and transported into the dart's storage matrix. "Unacceptable." Chief raised his assault rifle and fired a controlled burst at the dart's exposed underbelly while the culling beam was active. The armor-piercing rounds punched through the organic hull plating, and the dart shrieked an actual biological scream as green ichor sprayed from the wounds. The culling beam cut off, and the dart banked away, trailing atmospheric vapor. "Did you just hurt a Wraith dart with a rifle?" McKay sounded incredulous. "Those things usually shrug off P90 fire, targeting vulnerable systems during active weapons deployment," Chief explained, already tracking the next dart. "Their hulls are weaker when the culling mechanisms are engaged. Concentrated fire on the beam aperture disrupts the system." They reached the village square to find Shepard and Ronan establishing a defensive perimeter around the Stargate. Taylor was shepherding terrified civilians toward the active wormhole, her calm voice cutting through the panic in their native language. The event horizon shimmered, a vertical pool of blue energy that represented their only escape. "Chief!" Shepard called out, dropping a dart with a burst from his P90, enhanced with ancient gene-activated targeting. "Good timing! We've got maybe 5 minutes before those hives start beaming down ground forces. How do you feel about being a very large, very obvious target?" "It's what Spartans do best, sir." Ronan grinned, a feral expression that suggested he'd found a kindred spirit. "I like him." A dart swooped low over the square, its culling beam activating to engulf a cluster of fleeing villagers. Chief didn't hesitate. He sprinted directly into the beam's path, his Mjolnir armor's mass and shielding disrupting the dematerialization field. The beam struck his shields and scattered, unable to achieve the coherent lock needed for transport. The villagers stumbled free while Chief absorbed the energy drain, his shield percentage dropping to 43%. "That was insane!" McKay shouted, even as he hustled the rescued civilians toward the gate. "Brilliant, but insane! Shield regeneration in 15 seconds, Chief reported clinically, firing at the dart overhead. His rounds stitched across its wing structure, and the craft's biological systems hemorrhaged, forcing it to break off and limp away. More darts were descending now, 8, 10, a dozen, and the sky filled with their distinctive engine whine. Shepard's team worked with practiced efficiency, covering the civilians' retreat while maintaining suppressing fire on the attacking craft. But the mathematics were brutal. 300 people, 1 Stargate, and an ever-increasing number of Wraith attack vectors. "We're not going to get everyone through in time," Ronan growled, his particle magnum dropping darts with impressive accuracy. The weapon's energy blasts were more effective than Chief's kinetic rounds, each shot punching through organic armor like it was tissue paper. The Chief's tactical display agreed with Ronan's assessment. At current evacuation rates, they'd lose approximately 30% of the civilian population before the gate could cycle everyone to safety. Unacceptable casualties. "McKay," Chief said, "what's the maximum safe range for those ancient stun grenades you're carrying?" "About 20 meters for full effect." "Why, oh no. No. I know that tone of voice, and I don't like it. I need all of them. Now." McKay hesitated only a second before passing over 5 ancient stun devices. "These are prototypes. Extremely valuable. If you lose them, I'll retrieve them," Chief assured him, then switched channels. "Colonel Shepard, I'm going to draw the dart's attention away from the gate. Keep the civilians moving." "Chief, that's suicide," Shepard protested, but he was already redirecting fire to cover another group of villagers. "Those darts will tear you apart." "Negative. Spartans don't die easily." Before Shepard could argue further, Chief sprinted away from the Stargate toward the village's eastern edge, broadcasting his IFF signature on multiple frequencies and firing his assault rifle skyward. The dart's organic sensory systems detected the movement, the weapon's fire, and most importantly, the energy signature of his Mjolnir armor's shield system. As he'd calculated, 6 darts peeled away from the village center to pursue this new, provocative target. Chief ran through the village streets with augmented speed, his boots cracking cobblestones with each stride. The darts followed, their culling beams lancing down to engulf him. His shields flared and drained with each hit, regenerating in the brief moments between attacks. The HUD painted optimal paths through the architecture narrow alleys where the darts couldn't follow, covered positions that broke line of sight, buildings whose stone construction could absorb culling beam energy. He led them on a merry chase for 90 seconds, buying precious time for the civilians at the gate. When his shield percentage hit 23% and the darts began coordinating their attack patterns for a simultaneous strike, Chief activated his plan. He dove through the open door of what looked like a granary, rolled to his feet, and hurled all 5 ancient stun grenades simultaneously through different windows and doorways. The devices detonated in a cascading sequence, their blue-white energy pulses overlapping to create a coherent field that disrupted Wraith organic systems across a 50-meter radius. 4 darts dropped from the sky like stones, their biological pilots and systems overwhelmed by the ancient technology's neuroelectric shock. They crashed into village buildings with the shriek of dying organisms, green ichor spraying from ruptured hulls. The remaining 2 darts pulled away, damaged and cautious. Chief emerged from the granary, his shields regenerating to 68%, and surveyed the wreckage. 4 enemy craft were neutralized, with 0 UNSC casualties. Acceptable outcome. His radio crackled. "Chief, that was the most reckless, tactically brilliant thing I've seen in years," Shepard said, and there was genuine respect in his voice. "Get back to the gate. We're almost clear." Chief sprinted back toward the square, where the last civilians were stepping through the event horizon under Taylor's guidance. Ronan was laying down, suppressing fire with his particle magnum, while McKay frantically scanned for stragglers. "That's everyone from the square," McKay reported. "But sensors show scattered life signs in the outlying farms. Probably 50 to 60 people who didn't make it to the gate in time." "Then we go get them," Chief said simply. "With what?" Shepard gestured skyward. where more darts were descending and the massive hive ships loomed in low orbit like diseased moons. "Chief, we've saved 240 people. That's a win. If we stay, we're just adding ourselves to the Wraith's prisoner count." The chief's tactical analysis agreed staying was strategically unsound. But his entire existence had been built on a simple principle. Spartans never left anyone behind. The 50 civilians scattered across the farmlands weren't acceptable losses. They were people who deserved the same chance at escape as those already through the gate. "Colonel, I can move faster alone," Chief said. "Get your team through the gate. I'll retrieve the stragglers and follow." "Absolutely not," Shepard shot back. "You don't know the terrain, you don't know Wraith ground tactics, and you're one person against an entire culling operation. It's suicide." "I'm a Spartan. Suicide missions are in the job description." Ronan laughed. Actually laughed. And slapped Chief on his armored shoulder hard enough that an unaugmented person would have needed medical attention. "I'm staying with him. Someone needs to watch the Spartans back." "Ronan," Taylor started. But the Cetadan was already moving toward the nearest farmstead, his particle magnum charging. Shepard looked between Chief and his teammate, clearly torn between tactical sense and the same instinct that made Spartans run toward danger instead of away from it. Finally, he cursed creatively. "Fine. McKay, Taylor, get through the gate and tell Atlantis we're going to be delayed. Ronan, try not to let our new ally get himself killed. Chief, welcome to the most stupid rescue operation you've ever been part of." "Acknowledged," Chief replied. And the three of them moved out while McKay and Taylor disappeared through the Stargate. The next 20 minutes were a masterclass in mobile warfare. Chief and Ronan moved through the farmlands like a two-person army, with Shepard providing overwatch and coordination. They found clusters of civilians hiding in barns, root cellars, and irrigation ditches, families who'd been too far from the village square to reach the gate before the darts arrived. Chief's armor made him an obvious target, and he used that ruthlessly. While darts focused on the massive armored figure moving through the fields, Ronan and Shepard extracted civilians and guided them toward rally points. Chief would draw the darts into engagement range, damage their culling systems with precision fire, and force them to break off or risk catastrophic system failure. He learned Wraith tactics through direct experience. They preferred culling beams to direct combat. Their darts were vulnerable during active dematerialization sequences, and they operated on hive mind coordination that made them predictable once you understood the pattern. It wasn't that different from fighting Covenant Banshee's organic technology with biological weaknesses, pilots who relied on superior numbers rather than superior tactics. By the 18th minute, they'd rescued 43 additional civilians and were shepherding them back toward the Stargate in groups of 10. The hive ships were beginning to deploy ground forces, Wraith warriors beaming down in clusters of 4 or 5, their pale forms moving with inhuman grace through the farmlands. Chief encountered his first ground patrol while covering the last civilian group's retreat. 6 Wraith warriors materialized 30 meters ahead, their feeding hands already extending as they detected human life signs. "Contact front," Chief called, stepping between the Wraith and the fleeing civilians. His assault rifle was down to its last magazine, 67 rounds remaining, but the UNSC had trained him to make every shot count. The Wraith charged with predatory speed, and Chief met them head-on. The first died with 3 rounds through its feeding hand, the biological structure too damaged to regenerate before Chief put another burst through its skull. The second lunged at him with claws extended, trying to grapple, but Chief sidestepped with augmented reflexes and delivered an armored elbow strike that caved in the Wraith's ribcage. The creature's regeneration tried to compensate, but Chief's follow-up shots to its spine and brainstem overwhelmed the healing factor. The remaining 4 had learned they spread out, trying to flank. One raised its wrist-mounted stunner and fired. The energy blast hit Chief's shields and drained them by 20%, but he was already moving, using the terrain for cover. An irrigation ditch provided concealment while his shields regenerated. and he emerged behind the Wraith's firing line. Close quarters combat against regenerating aliens with feeding hands that could age him to death in seconds. Chief had fought flood combat forms in similar conditions. At least the Wraith didn't explode into infectious spores when killed. He dropped one Wraith with a combat knife to the throat, followed by point-blank rifle fire, rolled under a stunner blast from the second, and came up inside its guard to deliver a shield bash with his armored forearm that pulped the creature's face. The last two Wraith finally realized they were outmatched and attempted to retreat for reinforcements. The Chief didn't let them. 2 controlled bursts, 2 corpses, mission complete. "Chief, you've got more ground forces inbound," Shepard warned over the radio. 20+ Wraith warriors moving toward your position. Time to go. Chief sprinted back toward the gate, where the last group of civilians was stepping through the shimmering event horizon. Ronan was waiting at the platform's base, his particle magnum tracking targets in the sky. "Took you long enough, Spartan," the Cetadan said with a grin. "Had to make sure they knew we were here," Chief replied. Shepard came sliding down from his overwatch position, breathing hard. "Everyone's through. That's 283 civilians saved out of a population of 300. I'll take those numbers." He glanced at Chief's armor, which was scored with stunner burns and spattered with green Wraith blood. "You good?" "Fully operational," Chief confirmed. His shields were at 45% and regenerating ammunition was critically low, but he'd accomplished the mission objective with 0 friendly casualties. "Then let's get out of here before—" The air shimmered, and 6 Wraith warriors beamed down directly onto the Stargate platform, cutting off their escape route. More were materializing around the perimeter, a coordinated transport designed to capture them before they could dial out. "Oh, that's just great," Shepard muttered, raising his P90. "Chief, any brilliant Spartan tactics for this situation?" Chief's HUD counted 15 Wraith warriors with more beaming in every second, positioned to prevent access to the Stargate's DHD. He had 54 rounds remaining. Shepard and Ronan were well armed, but they were massively outnumbered with no cover and no support. In other words, a standard Tuesday for a Spartangent 2. "Yes," Chief said, ejecting his nearly empty magazine and slamming home his last full one. "We go through them." And Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 charged directly at the Wraith blocking the Stargate, with a former Goa'uld First Prime's apprentice and a Cetadan runner who'd survived 7 years of being hunted right behind him, proving that sometimes the best tactics were the simplest ones. Overwhelming violence applied with absolute precision. The Wraith warriors had expected fear, retreat, or desperate defensive positions. They hadn't expected 3 soldiers to charge directly into their formation with the kind of calculated aggression that turned numerical superiority into a liability in close quarters. Chief hit the first Wraith like a scorpion tank, his armored shoulder driving into the creature's chest with enough force to lift it off its feet and hurl it backward into 2 of its companions. The impact of half a ton of Spartan and Jalnar armor created a cascade effect. 3 Wraith went down in a tangle of limbs, their regeneration struggling to cope with multiple broken bones simultaneously. Ronan was right behind him, his particle magnum blazing at point-blank range. Each shot punched through Wraith torsos with devastating effect, the energy weapon's output far exceeding their regeneration threshold. The Cetadan moved like a man who'd spent years fighting for his life against these exact enemies, every motion economical and brutally effective. Shepard provided precision fire, his P90 targeting feeding hands and knee joints, vulnerable points that disrupted the Wraith's combat effectiveness even if they didn't immediately kill. The Colonel's ancient gene gave him enhanced reflexes with ancient-derived weapons, and he exploited that edge ruthlessly. Chief's last magazine burned through 30 rounds in controlled bursts as he carved a path toward the DHD. A Wraith lunged at him with feeding hand extended, and Chief caught the creature's wrist, his armor's enhanced strength letting him crush the delicate bones with an audible crack. The Wraith shrieked, and Chief used it as a battering ram to clear 2 more warriors before putting 3 rounds through its skull. "DHD!" Shepard shouted, diving past a Wraith stunner blast and sliding into position beside the ancient dialing device. His fingers flew across the glyphs with practiced speed. "Chief, Ronan, buy me 15 seconds. 15 seconds. Chief's tactical display showed 11 Wraith warriors still combat effective with more beaming down every moment. His ammunition counter read 23 rounds. Simple mathematics. Insufficient resources for the mission requirement. So he improvised. Chief grabbed the nearest Wraith by its leather coat, lifted the creature bodily despite its struggles, and hurled it into the cluster of warriors forming up near the gate platform. The improvised projectile bowled over 3 Wraith, creating a brief opening. Ronan capitalized instantly, his particle magnum dropping 2 more with shots that literally burned holes through their torsos. A stunner blast caught Chief's shields from behind, draining them to 18%. He spun, identified the shooter, and closed the distance before the Wraith could fire again. His combat knife found the creature's throat, the tactical blade designed to pierce Covenant energy shields cutting through Wraith flesh like butter. The Chief twisted, withdrew, and kicked the dying warrior into another approaching enemy. 7 seconds! Shepard called the DHD glyphs, lighting up in sequence as he dialed Atlantis. More Wraith were beaming down the hive. Ships above had identified them as high-value targets and were committing resources to the capture. Chief's motion tracker painted a nightmare scenario. 40-plus contacts converging on their position from multiple vectors. Even with Spartan augmentations and Mjolnir armor, those numbers would overwhelm them. Ronan seemed to reach the same conclusion. "Shepard, any time now. 3 seconds, got it." The 7th chevron locked, and the Stargate erupted in its unstable vortex before settling into a stable wormhole. "Go, go, go!" Ronan sprinted for the event horizon, firing backward to suppress the Wraith trying to cut them off. Chief provided cover, his last 17 rounds dropping 3 warriors who'd positioned themselves to intercept. The math was getting worse, more Wraith beaming in, surrounding the platform, cutting off escape vectors. "Chief, move!" Shepard was at the event horizon, laying down, suppressing fire. Chief turned to run, and a Wraith materialized directly in front of him, feeding hand already extended and glowing with bioluminescent hunger. The creature's palm pressed against Chief's chest plate before he could react, and Chief felt the horrifying sensation of the feeding process beginning, cellular energy being drawn out through some kind of biological siphon that bypassed his shields entirely. His HUD flickered. Warning alerts cascaded across his vision. Mjolnir's biometric sensors registered cellular degradation beginning in his chest cavity. The Wraith was feeding on him, draining his life force through the armor's underlayer, and Chief felt a sensation he hadn't experienced since childhood. Genuine physical weakness spreading through his augmented body. The Wraith's eyes widened in something like ecstasy as it fed on a Spartan's enhanced life force. "Such strength," it hissed in accented English. "You will feed our queen for—" Chief drove his combat knife up through the Wraith's jaw and into its brain, the blade penetrating the soft palate and cerebral cortex. The creature's feeding mechanism spasmed, cutting off the energy drain. Chief ripped the knife free, kicked the dying Wraith away, and staggered toward the gate. His HUD showed cellular damage across his chest, minimal. Maybe 5 years of life force drained in those 3 seconds, but enough to remind him that the Wraith's feeding mechanism was a weapon that bypassed conventional defenses. His augmented healing factor was already compensating, but the experience had been instructive. Don't let them touch you. He dove through the event horizon with Wraith warriors right behind him, their clawed hands grasping at his armor. The wormhole took him, and P3X774 vanished in a cascade of molecular disassembly and reassembly. Chief materialized in Atlantis' gate room and immediately rolled to a defensive position. Assault rifle tracking the event horizon for pursuers. Shepard and Ronan were already up, weapons trained on the gate. The Iris, a protective barrier similar to SGC's design, slammed shut, cutting off any potential Wraith attempting to follow. "Contact negative," Chief reported, lowering his rifle. "No pursuers made it through." "Thank God for small favors," Shepard breathed. saving his P-90. "Chief, you okay? I saw that Wraith grabbed you." "Minimal damage. The feeding mechanism drew approximately 5 years of cellular life force before I neutralized the threat. Chief ran diagnostics on his armor's biometric systems. Recommend updating tactical protocols. Wraith feeding hands can bypass energy shields. Close quarters combat requires immediate, lethal response to prevent life force extraction." McKay was rushing toward them from the control room, tablet in hand and face pale. "You're lucky it was only 5 years. Wraith can drain a normal human to a desiccated corpse in 30 seconds. Your Spartan augmentations probably saved your life. More cellular mass to drain means longer feeding time before critical damage," noted. Chief's matter-of-fact tone made McKay blink. "You just got partially fed on by an alien vampire and your response is, 'Noted? What are you, a machine?' Close enough," Ronan said with dark amusement, clapping Chief on the shoulder again. "That was a good fight, Spartan. You don't panic and you don't quit. I respect that. The mission was successful," Chief replied. 283 civilians. Evacuated with 0 friendly casualties. Acceptable outcome. Shepard was staring at him with an expression somewhere between respect and disbelief. "Chief, we just fought our way through 50 Wraith warriors. You got fed on. And you're treating this like a routine after-action report. I'm not sure if that's the most professional thing I've ever seen or the most disturbing." "Both," McKay offered. "Definitely both." The gate room's proximity alarm shrieked, and every head snapped toward the control displays. Chuck, the gate technician on duty, was frantically working his console. "Colonel, we've got an unscheduled off-world activation. Something's trying to dial in." "The Wraith?" Taylor asked, moving to Shepard's side. "Negative the IDC is." Chuck's face went pale. "Sir, it's transmitting UNSC encryption protocols. It's Infinity." Chief's priority channel crackled to life, Captain Lasky's voice cutting through with barely controlled urgency. "Atlantis, this is Infinity Actual. We have a situation in orbit. Multiple Wraith Hive ships just dropped out of hyperspace, and they're not here for the planet. They're forming an attack formation around my ship. I count 12 hives and they're powering weapons. We need immediate tactical support or Infinity is going to be in serious trouble." The control room went silent. 12 Wraith Hive ships against 1 UNSC vessel. No matter how powerful, the mathematics were brutally simple. McKay broke the silence with his characteristic bluntness. 12 hives. That's not a culling run. That's a full-scale Wraith armada. They're treating Infinity like a System Lord Hatak fleet showed up in their territory. This is an existential threat response. "How long before they engage?" Shepard demanded. "Unknown," Lasky replied over the comm. "They're maintaining distance and running what look like sensor sweeps, probably trying to figure out what kind of ship we are. But based on the tactical formation, I'd estimate we've got maybe 30 minutes before they decide to test our defenses. And Colonel," Lasky's voice hardened, "we can take maybe 3, 4 hives in sustained combat. 12 is beyond our operational capacity without significant support." The Chief's tactical mind was already processing options. Infinity was the UNSC's most powerful warship, equipped with Forerunner-enhanced weapons systems and shields that had survived engagement with Covenant supercarriers. But 12 Wraith Hive ships represented a combined tonnage and firepower that would overwhelm even Infinity's formidable defenses through sheer attrition. "Atlantis has drone weapons," Chief said, turning to Shepard. "If we can coordinate a joint strike, Infinity's MAC cannons and missile batteries with Atlantis's ancient technology, we might be able to even the odds." "Might?" McKay's voice went up an octave. "Chief, those are Hive ships. Each one is 3 kilometers long, with organic regenerating hulls, massive weapons arrays, and the ability to deploy thousands of darts and ground troops. Even with our drones, we're talking about a prolonged engagement that could drain our ZPM and leave Atlantis defenseless." "Then we don't engage in a prolonged battle," Chief replied with Spartan logic. "We execute a precision strike. Identify the command hive, likely the largest or most tactically positioned vessel, and eliminate it. Wraith operates on a hierarchical structure. Remove the Queen coordinating the attack, and the remaining hives will fight for dominance rather than maintaining formation. Shepard's expression shifted from concern to tactical calculation. That might actually work. Wraith politics are their biggest weakness. Kill the Alpha Hive, and the others will turn on each other trying to establish who's in charge. He turned to his team. Rodney, how many drones do we have in the chair? Maybe 300 if I divert power from non-essential systems and pray to the ancients that the control chair doesn't burn out from overuse. McKay was already running calculations on his tablet. And before you ask, yes, 300 drones could theoretically destroy a hive ship if we concentrate fire on critical systems. But coordinating that strike with Infinity while under attack from 11 other hives. I'll handle the coordination, Chief said. UNSC doctrine includes joint force operations. If Captain Lasky can maintain defensive posture and suppress the secondary hives, I can direct Atlantis' drone strikes to maximize damage against the primary target. You're talking about coordinating a space battle from inside the city, McKay protested. The chair requires the ancient gene to operate. And you're... He paused, a strange expression crossing his face. Wait. Chief, when that Wraith fed on you, my scanner picked up some anomalous readings. Let me see your arm. Dr. McKay, we don't have time for... Now, Chief. This is important. Chief extended his armored forearm, and McKay pressed his ancient gene scanner against the Mjolnir plating. The device chirped, beeped, and displayed readings that made the scientist's eyes go wide. That's impossible, McKay breathed. Chief, you're showing a faint positive for the ancient gene. Very faint, maybe 5% expression compared to Shepard's natural levels, but it's there. Your Spartan augmentations. The genetic modifications they did to you as a child. Somehow there's compatibility with ancient DNA markers. The Chief processed this information. The Spartan 2 augmentation process had involved extensive genetic manipulation, enhanced bone density, improved muscle fiber development, increased neural conductivity. If the ancients had seeded humanity across multiple galaxies with specific genetic markers, and if the UNSC's augmentation protocols had accidentally activated dormant ancient DNA sequences, can I use the control chair? The Chief asked directly. Maybe? Probably? I have no idea. McKay threw his hands up. This is completely unprecedented. The gene therapy we use to give non-carriers basic activation ability takes weeks to fully integrate, and even then it's hit or miss. You've got augmentation-induced natural expression that should theoretically allow basic interface, but I can't guarantee... McKay, Shepard interrupted. Yes or no? Can the Chief use our ancient weapons systems? The scientist deflated slightly. Yes, probably. With a 73% confidence interval and a significant risk of neural feedback if his gene expression isn't strong enough to handle the chair's processing requirements. I'll take those odds, Chief said. He'd survived worse. Shepard looked at his team, reading their expressions and coming to a decision that Chief recognized from his own years of command. The impossible choice between bad options and worse ones. Okay, here's how we're playing this. Chief, you're taking the chair. Rodney, you're supporting him with technical expertise and making sure his brain doesn't get fried by ancient technology. Ronan, Taylor, you're coordinating ground defenses in case any Wraith tries a boarding action against the city. And you? Taylor asked. Shepard's grin was sharp. I'm taking a jumper up to Infinity. If we're coordinating a joint strike against 12 hive ships, I want to be in the fight, not watching from the ground. Besides, someone needs to teach these Wraith what happens when they threaten a UNSC warship in Pegasus space. Colonel, Chief said, request permission to update that plan. I should be aboard Infinity coordinating the battle. You're better qualified to operate the control chair natural gene expression. Years of experience with ancient weapons systems. I'm trained for fleet coordination and capital ship combat scenarios. It was a logical argument. and Shepard clearly considered it, but he shook his head. "Chief, you're a Spartan. From what I've read in your file and what I've seen today, you're probably the most dangerous infantry combatant in 2 galaxies. I need that capability in the chair room in case Wraith try to beam into Atlantis during the battle. And," he paused, "I've been flying jumpers in combat for years. Let me do what I do best while you do what you do best." The chief understood. Different specializations, different roles. In the UNSC, he'd been the ground asset, while naval officers commanded ship engagements. The principle was the same here. "Understood, Colonel. Good hunting." "You too, Chief." Shepard grabbed his gear and headed for the jumper bay. "Rodney, get Chief to the chair room and walk him through the interface. We've got maybe 20 minutes before this turns into the biggest space battle Pegasus has seen in a decade. Let's make it count." As Shepard left, McKay turned to Chief with an expression of mingled excitement and terror. "Okay, so, brief crash course in ancient weapons systems. The control chair is a neural interface that links directly to your brain and translates thought into action. The drones are self-guided weapons that you direct through visualization and intent. It's intuitive once you get the hang of it, but for first-timers, it can be overwhelming, because you're essentially thinking in 3 dimensions while processing targeting data for hundreds of autonomous weapons and—" "Dr. McKay," Chief interrupted gently, "I've operated UNSC neural interfaces since I was 14 years old. I'm familiar with thought-controlled weapons systems." McKay blinked. "Oh, well then, this should be interesting." They headed for the chair room, and Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 prepared to do something no Spartan had ever done before. Sit in the command seat of an ancient warship and direct technology 10,000 years more advanced than anything humanity had built. Above them, in the cold vacuum of space, 12 Wraith Hive Ships hung in perfect formation around the UNSC Infinity like predators circling wounded prey. But what the Wraith didn't know, what they couldn't possibly understand, was that wounded prey could still have teeth. And sometimes, those teeth were enough to bite back. The ancient control chair sat in the center of Atlantis's drone weapon control room, like a throne designed for warriors who fought with thought rather than fists. Chief approached it cautiously, his tactical awareness cataloging the chamber's layout. Crystalline walls that pulsed with faint bioluminescence, holographic displays floating in the air showing city schematics and defensive grids, and the chair itself, an elegant piece of technology that had survived 10,000 years without degradation. "Okay, so, the chair is going to recline automatically when you sit down," McKay explained, hovering nearby with his tablet like a nervous parent watching their child attempt brain surgery. "Don't panic when that happens. It's designed to optimize the neural connection by positioning your head at the correct angle for the interface nodes to activate. You'll feel a slight tingling sensation at the base of your skull that's normal. If you feel like your brain is being set on fire, that's not normal, and you should probably get out immediately." "Understood." The chief lowered himself into the chair, and immediately the ancient technology responded. The seat reclined smoothly, adapting its contours to his armored form despite the fact that Mjolnir's mass and dimensions were far beyond what the ancients would have designed for. The chair's material felt almost organic, shifting to accommodate him. Then the interface activated. Chief had experienced UNSC neural laces, the direct connection between his augmented nervous system and Mjolnir's processing cores. He'd felt the brief disorientation of linking consciousness with machine intelligence. This was similar but profoundly different. Instead of connecting to a suit's tactical systems, he was touching something vast and ancient, a network that spanned an entire city and reached out to weapons platforms scattered across Atlantis's structure. Holographic displays erupted around him, flooding his vision with data. Power distribution grids, structural integrity monitors, shield status, and most importantly, the drone weapon inventory. 317 ancient drones sat in their launch tubes, each one a self-guided missile equipped with technology that could punch through Wraith organic hulls like they were paper. Chief? McKay's voice sounded distant. How are you feeling? Any neural feedback? Headaches? Uncontrollable urge to ascend to a higher plane of existence? Negative. The chief's voice was steady. The interface is intuitive. I can see the weapon systems, the city's defensive grid, power allocation to shields and sensors. That's the gene expression working. You're achieving basic synchronization with the chair's control matrix. McKay's tablet beeped frantically. Though, I have to say, your neural pattern looks weird on my sensors. There's this odd harmonic resonance that I've never seen before. Probably your Spartan augmentations interfacing with ancient technology in ways the original designers never anticipated. The chief ignored the technical babble and focused on learning the chair's capabilities. Unlike UNSC weapon systems that required manual targeting and firing authorization, the ancient drones operated on intent. He thought about a target, visualized the attack vector, and the weapons responded. It was like controlling an extension of his own body, but on a scale that encompassed the entire city. His radio crackled Shepard's voice from the puddle jumper. Chief, I'm approaching Infinity now. Captain Lasky is giving me clearance to land in their main hangar. How's the chair treating you? Fully operational, Colonel. I have control of 317 drones and access to city defensive systems. Standing by for targeting coordinates. Good, because our Wraith friends just started moving. Shepard's tone shifted from casual to combat-ready. All 12 hives are adjusting formation. Looks like they're done analyzing and ready to engage. Chief's enhanced awareness through the chair let him sense Atlantis' long-range sensors, and he pulled that data into his HUD. The 12 Wraith Hive ships were indeed repositioning, forming a sphere around Infinity with overlapping fields of fire designed to hit the UNSC vessel from all angles simultaneously. Classic encirclement tactics, effective against a single target with no support. Except Infinity had support, they just didn't know it yet. McKay, Chief said, I need you to establish a direct data link between Atlantis' sensors and Infinity's tactical network. If we're going to coordinate this strike, I need real-time sharing of targeting information. Already on it, McKay replied, fingers flying across his ancient console. Though I should mention that integrating UNSC and ancient computer systems is like trying to mate a hummingbird with a pterodactyl, completely different technological phylogenies that should not be compatible. Fortunately, I'm a genius, so... The console chimed success. There, you've got your link. Infinity's tactical data is now feeding into the chair's targeting matrix. The flood of new information was staggering. Chief suddenly had access to Infinity's sensor suite, weapons status, shield integrity, and most importantly, Captain Lasky's tactical assessment of the Wraith formation. The UNSC vessel was broadcasting targeting priorities, threat analysis, and optimal firing solutions using standardized military protocols that Chief's training recognized instantly. This he could work with. Infinity, this is Master Chief. He transmitted through the integrated comm system. I have control of Atlantis' drone weapons and access to your tactical network. Recommend we execute a coordinated alpha strike against the primary hive, the largest vessel in their formation. Agreed, Chief. Lasky's voice was calm, despite commanding a ship surrounded by hostiles. Infinity's sensors identify the primary hive as the vessel at bearing 273, elevation positive 45. 3.4 kilometers in length. Power output suggesting it's carrying a Wraith Queen and command infrastructure. If we can eliminate it quickly, the remaining hives should lose cohesion. Concur. Infinity will engage with primary armament, MAC rounds, and Archer missiles to draw their attention and weaken shields. Atlantis' drones will follow 60 seconds later, targeting critical systems exposed by your initial barrage. Chief, Commander Palmer's voice cut in from Infinity's CIC. We're detecting weapons charging on all 12 hives. They're preparing to fire simultaneously. Recommend we initiate strike immediately before they overwhelm our shields with concentrated bombardment. The Chief's tactical awareness agreed. Through the chair's sensors, He could see the Wraith Hive Ships' organic weapons systems pulsing with building energy bioplasma cannons that would hit Infinity from all vectors at once. The UNSC vessel's shields were formidable, but even Forerunner-enhanced technology had limits. "All stations, weapons free," Lasky ordered. "Fire!" Infinity's main guns spoke with the voice of human engineering at its finest. The massive magnetic accelerator cannon's 1,200-ton projectiles accelerated to 4% of light speed lanced across the void toward the primary hive. The kinetic impact was spectacular. The first round punched through the Wraith ship's organic shields and tore a crater 50 meters wide in its hull. The second and third rounds followed within seconds, each one carving deeper into the hive's biomass. Green ichor sprayed into vacuum as the Wraith vessel's regeneration struggled to cope with catastrophic damage. But the hive was massive, and its organic structure began healing almost immediately, new tissue growing to seal the wounds, shields reforming. "They're regenerating faster than anticipated," Lasky reported. Archer missiles away. Hundreds of ship-killer missiles streaked from Infinity's launch tubes, their contrails painting geometric patterns across space. They impacted the wounded hive in a cascading series of explosions, each one designed to overwhelm the target's defenses through sheer volume of fire. More damage, more wounds, but still the hive regenerated, and now the other 11 hives opened fire. Bioplasma bolts the size of houses converged on Infinity from every angle. A coordinated strike designed to collapse the ship's shields through focused bombardment. Chief watched through the sensor link as Infinity's defensive grid flared brilliant blue, energy shields absorbing terawatts of incoming fire. But the shield percentage was dropping 90%, 85, 79, each percentage point representing massive energy expenditure. "Shields holding, but we can't sustain this rate of fire indefinitely," Palmer reported. "Chief, anytime you want to join this party would be great. Stand by." Chief's mind interfaced with the drone weapons, and suddenly he understood why Shepard had described the chair as intuitive. The drones weren't just missiles, they were extensions of will, ready to fly where he directed them with thought alone. He visualized the primary hive, identified the critical systems that Infinity's bombardment had exposed, and released the drones. 317 ancient weapons launched simultaneously from Atlantis, rising from the city like a golden swarm. They accelerated through Lantia's atmosphere at velocities that would have torn conventional aircraft apart, breaking into space within seconds. Chief guided them with his mind, splitting the swarm into multiple attack vectors, some diving from above, others sweeping in from the flanks. A third group coming in low beneath the Wraith formation's firing arcs. The Wraith hives detected the new threat and attempted to adjust their targeting, but ancient drones were designed to be nearly impossible to intercept. They weaved and dodged with impossible agility, their small profiles and advanced maneuvering making them nightmares for organic targeting systems. The first wave hit the primary hive exactly where Chief directed them, the wounds that Infinity's Mac rounds had carved deep into its hull. The drones penetrated the exposed biomass and detonated inside the hive's critical systems. Secondary explosions rippled through the massive vessel as power conduits ruptured. Organic reactor chambers failed, and structural integrity collapsed from within. The second wave targeted the hive's weapon systems, destroying the bioplasma cannons that had been firing on Infinity. The third wave punched through to what Atlantis' sensors identified as the Queen's Chamber, the command center, where the Wraith matriarch coordinated her forces. Chief released 50 drones directly into that chamber and triggered simultaneous detonation. The primary hive ship convulsed like a dying organism, which in a very real sense it was. Massive sections of its hull peeled away as internal explosions tore through its biomass faster than regeneration could compensate. The vessel's power signature flickered and died. Its shields collapsed, and the 3-kilometer behemoth began tumbling through space, lifeless and broken. "Primary target destroyed," Chief reported clinically. 11 hostile vessels remaining. Through the sensor link, he watched the Wraith response with professional interest. The remaining 11 hives immediately ceased firing on Infinity and broke formation, their coordinated attack dissolving into chaos. Several hives turned toward each other, weapons charging the political infighting Shepard had predicted. Each hive's queen attempting to assert dominance now that the primary queen was dead. "It's working," Lasky said, and there was satisfaction in his voice. "They're fighting each other for leadership. Chief, recommend we press the advantage while they're disorganized." "Negative," Chief replied, his tactical assessment overriding the instinct to continue engagement. Atlantis's drone inventory is depleted to 43%. Infinity's shields are at 62% and MAC ammunition is limited. We've accomplished the primary objective, breaking their coordinated attack. Continuing engagement risks unacceptable losses if they regroup. There was a pause. Then Lasky's voice returned, tinged with respect. "You're right. We've bloodied their nose and eliminated their command structure. That's a win. All stations maintain defensive posture but hold fire unless directly engaged." The 11 remaining Wraith hives seemed to reach a similar conclusion. They disengaged from each other and began withdrawing, transitioning into hyperspace one by one. Chief tracked them through the sensors, cataloging their trajectories and hyperspace windows for future reference. Within 5 minutes, Lantea's orbital space was clear except for the dead hive ship tumbling in a decaying orbit. "Threat assessment, negative," Chief reported. "All hostile vessels have withdrawn." McKay let out a breath he'd apparently been holding for the entire engagement. "Okay, so we just fought off 12 Wraith Hive ships, with a combination of UNSC and ancient technology coordinated by a Spartan in a 10,000-year-old neural interface chair. And we won. I need to sit down." "You are sitting down, Rodney," came Zelenka's voice from somewhere in the control room. "Then I need to sit down more." Chief carefully disengaged from the chair, the neural connection severing cleanly. He stood, running diagnostics on his armor and himself. Minor neural fatigue from the interface, nothing his augmented physiology couldn't handle. Malner systems are all green. Mission successful. Shepard's voice crackled over the radio. "Chief, that was some of the most impressive weapons coordination I've ever seen. You took to that chair like you were born for it." "The interface was intuitive, once I understood the principles," Chief replied. "Ancient technology and UNSC neural laces share similar design philosophies, direct thought-to-action translation with minimal processing lag." "He's being modest," McKay interjected. "Most people need weeks of practice to achieve basic synchronization with the chair." Chief did it in under 5 minutes, and then proceeded to conduct a precision strike against a hive ship while coordinating with a UNSC warship. "That's not intuitive, that's something else entirely." Ronan's voice joined the channel. "So the Spartan can shoot, fight hand-to-hand, and blow up Wraith hives with his mind. Is there anything you can't do, Chief?" "Dance," Chief replied without hesitation, and was rewarded with Ronan's genuine laughter. "I like him more every minute," Satadan said. Shepard was walking back into the control room now, having left his jumper in Infinity's hangar and beamed down with Captain Lasky. The UNSC officer looked around Atlantis's command center with undisguised fascination, his hand unconsciously reaching toward ancient consoles before professional discipline stopped him. "Chief," Lasky said formally, extending his hand. "That was exceptional tactical coordination. You gave us the edge we needed to survive that engagement." The chief clasped the offered hand. "The mission required joint force operations, sir. Both Infinity and Atlantis contributed equally to the successful outcome. Speaking of which," Shepard interrupted, pulling up a holographic display showing the dead hive ship in orbit. "We should probably do something about that 3-kilometer corpse before it crashes into Lantea. The environmental impact would be significant. We could use the city's tractor beam to push it into a stable orbit," McKay suggested. "Or better yet, send salvage teams aboard." A mostly intact Wraith Hive is a treasure trove of biological technology. Think of what we could learn. Or we could blow it to pieces with Infinity's Mac guns and avoid the risk of Wraith biological contamination, Palmer offered from Lasky's comlink. I vote for the turn it into small chunks option. Lasky considered both suggestions. Actually, Dr. McKay's idea has merit. If we're stranded in Pegasus Galaxy with no way home, understanding Wraith technology could provide insights into hyperspace mechanics that might help repair Infinity's slipspace drive. Chief, your assessment? Chief pulled up the tactical data on the dead hive. The vessel is structurally compromised but salvageable. Recommend joint UNSC Atlantis salvage operation with full quarantine protocols. Marines and Spartan teams for security. Science personnel for analysis. If we can extract intact Wraith hyperspace components and compare them to Infinity's slipspace generators, we might find compatibility points that let us rebuild your FTL drive using hybrid technology. McKay finished, his eyes lighting up with scientific enthusiasm. Yes! Oh, this is perfect! Chief, I take back every skeptical thing I thought about you. You think like a scientist. I think like a soldier looking for solutions, Chief corrected. But the principle is the same. Adapt, overcome, accomplish the mission. Taylor, who had been silent during the tactical discussion, spoke up with her characteristic insight. There is another consideration. The Wraith will not forget what happened here today. Infinity destroyed a queen and her hive, demonstrating capabilities they have never encountered. Word will spread through their network. They will return, in greater numbers, and they will be prepared. The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled. She was right. The Wraith operated on a collective memory spanning thousands of years. Today's battle would become part of their tactical database, shared across hives through their telepathic connections. The next time they engaged Infinity, they would come ready for Mac cannons, ancient drones, and coordinated human tactics. Then we make sure we're ready too, Chief said simply. We analyze their tactics, develop countermeasures, integrate our technologies to create defensive capabilities neither force could achieve alone. The UNSC learned to fight the Covenant by studying their weaknesses and adapting our strategies. We'll do the same with the Wraith. Shepard grinned. You know, when you showed up through our Stargate in that armor, I wasn't sure if you'd be an asset or a complication. I'm starting to lean toward assets. The mission parameters have aligned our objectives, Chief replied. Infinity's crew needs to survive in Pegasus. Atlantis needs additional military capability against the Wraith. Cooperation benefits both parties. He's very practical, McKay observed. I appreciate that in a super soldier. Lasky looked between Shepard and Chief, clearly reading the developing professional respect between the two officers. Colonel Shepard, I'd like to formalize this alliance. Infinity will remain in Lantia orbit as a defensive asset for Atlantis, while my engineering teams work on slipspace drive repairs. In exchange, we request access to ancient technology databases, assistance with hyperspace mechanics research, and joint training exercises between our forces. Shepard extended his hand. Deal! Welcome to the Pegasus Galaxy, Captain. Try not to let the alien vampires get you down. As the two commanders shook hands, formalizing the alliance between two human forces from different universes against a common threat, Chief felt something he rarely experienced. Satisfaction with a mission outcome that exceeded initial parameters. They had come to this galaxy by accident, encountered an unknown enemy, and turned what could have been a massacre into a tactical victory. But Taylor's warning echoed in his mind. The Wraith would return, stronger, prepared, and when they did, the alliance between Atlantis and Infinity would be tested in ways that today's battle was only a preview. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 had spent 30 years preparing for impossible battles against overwhelming odds. Pegasus Galaxy would be no different. He just needed to make sure that when the Wraith came back, they learned the same lesson the Covenant had. Humanity didn't give up, didn't surrender, and never stopped fighting. even when the odds said they should. The salvage operation began 48 hours after the battle, giving Infinity's engineering teams and Atlantis' science division time to develop comprehensive quarantine protocols. Chief stood in the dead Hive ship's primary corridor, his motion tracker painting a three-dimensional map of the organic passageways that twisted through the biomass like arteries through a corpse. The interior was a nightmare of biological architecture, walls that pulsed with residual bioluminescence, floors covered in what felt like cartilage beneath his boots, and the pervasive smell of decay that his armor's filtration systems couldn't entirely eliminate. It was like walking through the innards of a creature that had been flash-frozen mid-death. "Biohazard readings are within acceptable parameters," reported Lieutenant Chen, one of Infinity's science officers. She swept her scanner across a wall membrane. "No active Wraith biological signatures, no pathogens that our immune systems can't handle. But I wouldn't recommend removing your helmet, Chief. The atmosphere is technically breathable but smells like a slaughterhouse." "Understood." Chief's HUD displayed the mission parameters. Locate the Hive's hyperspace drive chamber, extract intact components for analysis, and retrieve any Wraith data storage systems that might contain tactical intelligence. Secondary objective: map the Hive's internal structure for future boarding action reference. McKay was practically vibrating with scientific enthusiasm as he scanned a nearby control console that looked like it had been grown rather than built. "This is fascinating!" The Wraith don't use traditional computer systems. Their technology is entirely organic, almost neural in structure. It's like the entire ship is one massive distributed brain. He touched a membrane, and it rippled under his fingers. Ugh, that's disturbing. Commander Palmer led the security detachment, 6 Spartangent 4s in full Mjolnir armor, their weapons trained on every corner and shadow. The Spartans moved with professional competence, but Chief could see the subtle tells of soldiers encountering something outside their experience. Slightly wider scanning patterns, more frequent motion tracker checks, weapons held a fraction tighter. "Spartans," Chief said over the team channel. "Maintain standard breach protocols. Treat this as a hostile boarding action until we confirm the vessel is completely dead. Wraith biology includes regeneration capabilities. Assume nothing." "Understood, Master Chief," Palmer replied. She'd fallen into calling him by rank, despite technically being his superior officer in the Spartangent 4 program. There was something about the way Chief operated 3 decades of combat experience, the quiet authority of someone who'd survived battles that killed legends that made even veteran Spartans defer to him instinctively. Ronan had joined the salvage team, insisting that someone who'd spent 7 years running from Wraith should be present. He moved through the corridors with a hunter's awareness, his particle magnum tracking every shadow. This is a smaller hive than most I've seen. Probably only carried a few thousand warriors when it was alive. "Only a few thousand?" Lieutenant Chen's voice went up slightly. "That's a small army." "The big hives carry tens of thousands," Ronan replied casually. "Queens compete for feeding territories by crew size and military strength." This was probably a younger queen trying to establish dominance by taking down Infinity, backfired on her. They descended deeper into the hive's structure, following McKay's scans toward what the ancient gene scanner identified as the hyperspace drive chamber. The corridors grew more organic, less structured, as if they were moving from the hive's technological sections into its purely biological core. Chief's motion tracker pinged. "Contact," he said quietly, raising his assault rifle. "Single signature, 20 meters ahead. Stationary." The Spartans immediately formed a defensive perimeter, weapons tracking the threat. Palmer signaled 2 of her team forward for reconnaissance. They advanced with textbook precision, using the organic walls for cover. "Chief, I've got visual," one of the Spartans reported. It's a Wraith, but it's not moving. Looks like it's embedded in the wall structure." They approached cautiously, and Chief saw what the Spartan meant. A Wraith warrior was literally fused into the corridor wall, its body half merged with the biomass as if the dying hive had tried to reabsorb its crew for raw materials. The creature's eyes were open but lifeless, its feeding hand frozen mid-extension. The hive was trying to cannibalize its own crew to fuel regeneration, McKay said with disturbed fascination. When we destroyed it, the organic systems went into survival mode and started breaking down everything for biomass. There are probably hundreds of Wraith corpses integrated into the ship's structure. Then we need to move faster, Chief said. If the hive's biology is still active on some level, it might continue degenerating. I don't want to be inside when critical structural supports start dissolving. They reached the hyperspace drive chamber 15 minutes later, and even Chief, who'd seen Forerunner installations that defied physics, paused at the site. The chamber was a massive organic cavity lined with what looked like crystalline growths, pulsing conduits of bioluminescent tissue, and at the center, a structure that was somehow both technological and biological. The hyperspace drive itself appeared to be a hybrid of flesh and crystal, a living engine that had punched holes through reality until ancient drones had torn it apart. Okay, McKay breathed, his scanner going haywire trying to process the readings. I don't even have words. The Wraith achieved hyperspace travel by growing organic tissue that naturally resonates with subspace frequencies. It's completely different from ancient or UNSC approaches, but it works on similar principles. If we can extract samples and compare them to Infinity's slipspace generators, do it, the Chief ordered. Chen, assist Dr. McKay with component extraction. Palmer, establish a security perimeter. I want eyes on all access points. The science team got to work with specialized tools designed to cut through Wraith biomass without triggering defensive responses. McKay supervised with manic intensity, calling out specifications and warnings about which crystalline structures were critical and which were redundant biological growth. Chief's HUD suddenly flooded with warning indicators. His motion tracker was lighting up with contacts throughout the hive, dozens of them, appearing in clusters across multiple decks. Palmer, confirm sensor readings, Chief said sharply. I'm showing massive biosignature increase throughout the vessel. Palmer checked her own scanners and swore. Confirmed. Chief, those aren't Wraith warriors. The signatures are wrong, smaller, more numerous. They're moving toward our position fast. Ronan's expression went dark. Iratus bugs. The Wraith evolved from them millions of years ago. Hives sometimes carry swarms as biological weapons. When the ship died, they must have been released from containment. What are we talking about? Palmer demanded. Threat assessment? Imagine a spider the size of a dog with acid for blood, mandibles that can pierce body armor, and a hive mentality that makes them swarm targets in coordinated attacks, Ronan replied. And they're attracted to movement and body heat. The Chief's tactical mind processed this instantly. McKay, how long until you have the samples? 5 minutes minimum. These crystalline matrices are delicate. If I rush the extraction, we might damage the components beyond analysis. 5 minutes. Chief's motion tracker showed the bug swarms converging from 3 directions, moving through the organic corridors at speeds that suggested enhanced mobility in their native environment. They had maybe 90 seconds before first contact. Spartans, establish fallback positions, Chief ordered. Chen, assist McKay with extraction. You're on a 4-minute countdown. Palmer, your team will hold the access points. Ronan and I will take the primary approach vector. Chief, there could be hundreds of those things, Palmer protested. 2 operators can't. Will be sufficient, Chief interrupted. He'd held corridors against flood swarms with worse odds. Execute. The Spartangent 4s moved with impressive speed, establishing interlocking fields of fire at the 3 corridor entrances to the drive chamber. Chief and Ronan positioned themselves at the largest access point, where the motion tracker showed the densest concentration of incoming contacts. How do you want to play this? Ronan asked, charging his particle magnum. Concentrated fire at maximum range. Don't let them close to melee distance. If they breach the firing line, I'll engage in close quarters while you maintain range support." Ronan grinned. "You really are a Spartan. Everyone else would be running right now." "Spartans don't run from bugs," Chief replied. "We kill them." The first Iratus bugs appeared at the far end of the corridor like a chittering tide of nightmare fuel. They were exactly as Ronan had described, arachnid horrors the size of large dogs, their black carapaces glistening with bioluminescent patterns. Multiple eyes reflected Chief's helmet lights, and their mandibles clicked with predatory anticipation. The Chief opened fire. His assault rifle barked in controlled bursts, each 3-round group punching through an Iratus bug's carapace. The creatures shrieked a sound like tearing metal and green ichor sprayed as they died. But more were already surging forward, climbing over their dead to reach the humans. Ronan's particle magnum blazed beside him, each shot vaporizing an Iratus bug in a flash of superheated tissue. The Cetadan had clearly fought these things before he targeted the central body mass where the creature's nervous system clustered, ensuring instant kills. "They're faster than I remember!" Ronan shouted over the weapon's fire and chittering swarm. Chief adjusted his tactics, switching to longer bursts and targeting the lead bugs to create a bottleneck of corpses that slowed the swarm's advance. The corridor was working in their favor narrow enough that the bugs couldn't flank, forcing them into a killing field where superior human firepower could compensate for numerical disadvantage. But the bugs were learning. Some began crawling on the walls and ceiling, trying to bypass the corpse pile and attack from multiple vectors. Chief tracked them with his HUD's targeting reticle, his augmented reflexes letting him engage targets above while Ronan covered the ground approach. "Bugs on the ceiling," Palmer called from the left entrance, her assault rifle lighting up the organic architecture. "They're trying to drop on us from above." "Engage with grenades," the Chief ordered. "Disrupt their coordination." Fragmentation grenades detonated throughout the chamber, each one shredding multiple Iratus bugs and disrupting the swarm's assault pattern. But the bugs kept coming, driven by hive instinct to eliminate the intruders in their dead ship. Chief's ammunition counter hit critical levels, 60 rounds remaining in his current magazine. 2 spare mags after that. He'd need to make every shot count. An Iratus bug broke through the corpse pile, moving with horrifying speed directly at Chief. He sidestepped its lunge, grabbed one of its legs with his armored hand, and used the creature's momentum to slam it into the wall hard enough to crack its carapace. His combat knife finished the job, punching through its head. "McKay," the Chief called. "Status. 3 minutes. These crystalline matrices are interconnected. I can't just cut one loose without destabilizing the others." 3 minutes. Chief's motion tracker showed at least 200 more bugs converging on their position. The mathematics were getting worse. Then, something changed. The bugs suddenly stopped their assault, freezing in place throughout the corridor. Their chittering fell silent. Every multifaceted eye turned toward the drive chamber's center, where McKay was working on the organic hyperspace engine. Rodney?" Ronan said carefully. "What did you just do?" "I disconnected the primary crystalline matrix from the drive core," McKay replied, his voice showing the first hint of nervousness. "Why? Did something happen?" The Iratus bugs surged forward as one, ignoring the humans entirely, all converging on McKay's position with singular focus. "They're protecting the drive," the Chief realized. "The bugs are part of the Hive's biological defense system. They're trying to stop us from removing critical components." "Well, that's just great." McKay scrambled backward as the swarm redirected toward him. "Could have used that information before I poked the organic engine." The Chief made a split-second tactical decision. "Spartans, concentrate all fire on bugs approaching Dr. McKay. Ronan with me." He charged directly into the swarm, his Mjolnir armor turning him into a battering ram that scattered bugs with pure kinetic force. Ronan was right behind him, using his superior strength to literally rip bugs apart with his bare hands when they got too close for his particle magnum. The Spartangent 4's concentrated fire created a protective corridor of death around McKay, their assault rifles dropping bugs with mechanical precision. But the swarm kept coming. climbing over corpses in waves of chittering horror. Chief's shields dropped to 23% as bug mandibles scored hits against his armor. Acid blood sprayed across his visor, obscuring vision. He fought blind, using motion tracker data and spatial awareness to track targets, his combat knife and armored fists crushing bugs with systematic efficiency. "Got it!" McKay shouted triumphantly. "I've got the crystalline matrices. We can go now." "Spartans, fighting retreat," Palmer ordered. "Fall back to the primary corridor, we're leaving." They withdrew in textbook fashion, maintaining interlocking fields of fire while McKay clutched the precious organic samples. Chief and Ronan served as rear guard, dropping the pursuing bugs with concentrated firepower until the swarm finally seemed to lose interest once they'd cleared the drive chamber. The team made it back to the Hive's main docking platform where their Pelican dropship waited, engines already hot. They piled aboard, and the pilot didn't wait for confirmation before launching back toward Atlantis. As the dead Hive ship fell away below them, Chief ran diagnostics on his armor. Shield generators are functional but strained. Ammunition down to 17 rounds in his current weapon. Armor scoring from acid but structural integrity maintained. Acceptable damage for mission success. "Chief," McKay said, still breathing hard, "that was the most terrifying scientific expedition I've ever been on. And I've been on expeditions where ancient technology tried to ascend me against my will." "Mission accomplished," Chief replied simply. "You obtained the hyperspace drive samples. Did the extraction succeed?" McKay looked at the containment case holding the crystalline matrices, his expression shifting from terror to scientific enthusiasm. Yes, I think we got everything we need. If these organic components can interface with Infinity's slipspace generators, we might actually have a path to repairing your FTL drive. It'll take months of analysis, but," he grinned, "we might be able to get you home, Chief." Home. The word carried weight that the Chief didn't allow himself to examine too closely. The UNSC, Earth. The ongoing battles against Covenant remnants and new threats, but also, Atlantis was fighting a war too. Against an enemy that had culled humans for 10,000 years. And now, Infinity's crew had become part of that fight. "One mission at a time, Dr. McKay," Chief said. "First, we ensure Atlantis's defenses are integrated with Infinity's capabilities. Then, we worry about long-term solutions." Palmer looked at him with an expression of understanding. She'd seen enough combat to recognize when a soldier was choosing duty over convenience. "Chief's right. We're in this fight now. Might as well make sure we win it." As the Pelican approached Atlantis's landing bay, Chief looked back one last time at the dead Hive ship, already beginning to break apart in its decaying orbit. One Wraith Hive was destroyed. 11 more had withdrawn, spreading word of humanity's capabilities across the Pegasus Galaxy. The war was just beginning, and Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 had fought enough wars to know the second battle was always harder than the first. 3 weeks into the Alliance, Chief stood in Infinity's war room alongside Captain Lasky, Commander Palmer, and Colonel Shepard, studying holographic projections of Pegasus Galaxy that painted a grim strategic picture. Red markers indicated confirmed Wraith Hive locations, 47 known vessels scattered across the galaxy. Blue markers showed human settlements under Atlantis protection, 138 worlds. The mathematics were brutal. Even with Infinity's firepower and Atlantis's ancient technology, they were drastically outnumbered. "Intelligence from the Genie indicates increased Wraith coordination since our engagement," Shepard reported, manipulating the hologram to highlight several Hive clusters. "They're not just fighting each other anymore. Word about Infinity has spread, and it's got them worried. A ship that can kill a queen with conventional weapons? That's an existential threat to their entire feeding structure." Dr. Glassman pulled up technical schematics alongside the tactical display. "We've made progress integrating the Wraith hyperspace components with Infinity's slipspace drive. The organic crystalline matrices resonate with subspace in ways remarkably similar to how Sha Fujikawa generators create ruptures. But," he hesitated, glancing at Lasky. "But what, Doctor?" the captain prompted. "But full integration will require testing that could catastrophically fail. If the organic components reject the slipspace field geometry, we're looking at a containment breach that could tear a hole in space-time. The explosion would vaporize Infinity and probably take a significant chunk of Lantia with it." The room fell silent. McKay, attending via holographic link from Atlantis, jumped in with characteristic bluntness. "What Glassman isn't saying is that we're essentially trying to mate two completely different FTL technologies that evolved independently in separate universes. It's like performing experimental brain surgery on Infinity while she's still operational. The risk of catastrophic failure is approximately 43%. 43% chance of vaporization," Palmer summarized. "Great odds." "There's another option," Chief said, studying the galactic map. "We don't repair Infinity's slipspace drive. We adapt." Every head turned toward him. Lasky's expression was carefully neutral. "Explain, Chief." Infinity's original mission was deep space exploration and force projection for the UNSC. That mission profile assumed return to Earth, resupply, crew rotation. Here, we're effectively stranded in hostile territory with no reinforcement, no resupply lines, and enemies that outnumber us 47-1. Chief highlighted the Wraith Hive positions. Attempting to restore slipspace capability introduces unacceptable risk for questionable gain. Even if we succeed, where do we go? Back to our universe through an unstable dimensional rift? The mechanics that brought us here were accidental. Deliberately recreating them could be impossible. So your suggestion is we just stay? Glassman asked. Abandon Earth? The UNSC? Everything we fought for? My suggestion is we adapt to current tactical reality, Chief replied. Infinity becomes Pegasus Galaxy's defensive anchor. We establish permanent alliance with Atlantis, integrate our technologies, and use combined human forces to systematically eliminate Wraith Hives before they can coordinate a full-scale response. It's what Spartans do. Improvise. Adapt. Overcome. Shepard was nodding slowly. Chief's got a point. You're already here, already committed to the fight whether you intended to be or not. And frankly, having a ship like Infinity permanently stationed in Pegasus changes the entire strategic equation. The Wraith have never faced sustained, organized human resistance with technology that matches theirs. We're talking about 17,000 personnel making a decision to never see their families again, Palmer said quietly. That's not a tactical choice, Chief. That's a life choice, which is why it needs to be Captain Lasky's call, not mine. Chief acknowledged. I'm simply presenting operational reality. Attempting slipspace repair introduces critical risk. Staying and fighting maximizes our strategic impact. Lasky was silent for a long moment, studying the holographic galaxy with the weight of command evident in every line of his face. When he spoke, his voice carried the certainty of someone who'd accepted a hard truth. Chief's analysis is sound, but he's also right that this isn't a decision I make unilaterally. I'll put it to the crew stay and fight, or risk everything on experimental repairs. Either way, he looked at Shepard. Infinity isn't leaving Pegasus until the Wraith threat is significantly reduced. We've already lost too many people to culling operations. I won't abandon those settlements to their fate. Then we make a stand, Shepard said. Together. The meeting broke up with assignments distributed. Glassman and McKay would continue slipspace research as a contingency option. Palmer would coordinate joint training between Spartans and Atlantis military personnel, and Chief would work with Shepard on strategic planning for offensive operations against isolated Wraith Hives. Chief was reviewing tactical data in Infinity's armory, when Cortana's voice echoed in his memory advice she'd given him decades ago about accepting situations beyond his control and finding new missions within them. He'd been stranded before, cut off from command, forced to operate independently. This was larger scale, but the principle remained. Identify the mission, execute with maximum efficiency, Protect humanity. His helmet's comm system activated Ronon's voice. Chief, are you busy? Got something you need to see. 15 minutes later, Chief stood in Atlantis' training facility watching Ronon spar with one of the Spartan 4s. The Citadin moved with brutal efficiency, using his superior strength and 7 years of survival experience to counter the Spartans' technical training. They were evenly matched, augmented human versus naturally formidable warrior, and the bout ended in mutual respect and minor bruising. Your Spartans are good, Ronon said, accepting a water container from Chief. But they fight like they've been trained for specific scenarios. Wraith don't follow scenarios. They adapt, they learn, they remember encounters across decades. Your people need to be unpredictable. Agreed, Chief replied. Which is why I requested this meeting. I want you to train with the Spartan contingent. Teach them Pegasus-specific combat tactics, Wraith physiology, feeding hand counters, dart evasion, hive ship boarding procedures. Ronon raised an eyebrow. You want me to train super soldiers? I want you to make them better at staying alive in this galaxy. You've survived what killed countless others. That experience is a tactical asset. The Citadin considered this, then grinned. All right, but I'm not going easy on them just because they've got fancy armor. I wouldn't expect you to. Over the following days, Chief watched Atlantis and Infinity's personnel integrate with remarkable efficiency. Spartan 4s learned Wraith combat tactics from Ronon and Taylor. UNSC Marines trained alongside Atlantis security teams in gate room defense scenarios. Engineers from both groups collaborated on hybrid weapons systems that combined UNSC kinetic firepower with ancient energy technology. McKay and Glassman had become an unlikely but effective team, their competing egos driving innovation through one-upmanship. They developed prototype weapons that married UNSC targeting systems with ancient drone guidance, handheld launchers that fired miniaturized versions of the city's primary weapons. The first field test had been spectacularly successful, with a single shot destroying a Wraith cruiser that had been harassing a protected world. But it was in Atlantis' ancient database that Chief found the most concerning discovery. He'd been searching for references to Forerunner technology, hoping to find some connection that might explain the similarities between ancient and Forerunner engineering philosophies. Instead, he found something else entirely. References to a Wraith weakness that the ancients had discovered, but never fully exploited before their ascension. McKay, Chief called over the comm. I need you in the database chamber. I found something. The scientist arrived within minutes, Shepard and Taylor close behind. Chief displayed the ancient text on the holographic interface, the translation algorithms rendering it into English. The ancients discovered that Wraith biology is dependent on a specific enzyme that regulates their feeding mechanism and regeneration, Chief summarized. Without this enzyme, Wraith can't feed properly and their regeneration becomes unstable. The ancients theorized about developing a retrovirus that could neutralize this enzyme, effectively neutralizing the Wraith as a threat. A retrovirus, McKay breathed, his eyes going wide. A biological weapon that could affect every Wraith in the galaxy if properly deployed. That's brilliant and terrifying. The ancients never completed the research, Taylor noted, reading the translated text. They ascended before finishing the project. The data is incomplete. But it's a starting point, Shepard said. If we could develop something like this, we'd be talking about genocide, McKay interrupted sharply. Biological warfare on a galactic scale. Yes, the Wraith are monsters who feed on humans, but deliberately engineering a plague to wipe out an entire species? That crosses lines, John. Lines they crossed 10,000 years ago when they started culling humans like cattle. Shepard shot back. How many billions have died feeding Wraith hunger? How many more will die if we don't stop them? Chief listened to the argument with the detachment of someone who'd faced similar moral questions during the Human Covenant War. The UNSC had considered biological weapons against the Covenant, and had debated the ethics of xenocide versus survival. In the end, humanity had chosen to fight conventionally, but the question had never been simple. "This isn't a decision we make today," Chief said quietly, and both Shepard and McKay turned to him. "Developing a retrovirus would take months, maybe years. Testing it would require Wraith subjects and controlled conditions. Deploying it would require delivery mechanisms we don't have. This is strategic intelligence for future consideration, not an immediate tactical option." "Chief's right," Taylor agreed. "We should continue researching, but we must also consider the ethical implications. The Wraith are predators, yes, but they are also a species. Destroying them entirely." She trailed off, clearly conflicted. "I'll start analyzing the ancient data," McKay said finally. "Just preliminary research, understanding the science. We don't make any decisions about weaponization without full crew consensus, both Atlantis and Infinity personnel." Shepard nodded reluctantly. "Agreed. Chief, I want you to keep this quiet for now. If word gets out that we're considering biological weapons, it could create panic or political complications we don't need." "Understood." Chief left the database chamber with the weight of command decisions settling across his shoulders. The Wraith retrovirus was a weapon that could end the war, but at a cost that made even a Spartan hesitate. He'd been trained to protect humanity through any means necessary, but genocide, even against an enemy as monstrous as the Wraith, required justification beyond tactical convenience. His voice chimed Palmer's voice. "Chief, we've got a situation. Long-range sensors are picking up a Wraith Hive ship entering Lantian space. Single vessel, transmitting on ancient frequencies. They're requesting negotiation." Chief's tactical instincts immediately went on alert. The Wraith didn't negotiate. They fed, they fought, they culled. Requesting talks was unprecedented behavior that suggested either desperation or deception. "I'm en route to the control room," Chief replied, already moving. "Recommend full tactical alert but hold fire unless engaged." When he arrived, the control room was buzzing with activity. The holographic display showed a single Wraith Hive ship holding position at the edge of Lantia's gravity well. Its weapons powered down in a gesture of non-aggression that felt wrong on multiple levels. Shepard was already there, arms crossed, staring at the display with deep suspicion. "They're broadcasting on a frequency that Taylor recognizes. It's how Wraith Queens communicate with each other during temporary truces. This isn't a trick or an attack. They genuinely want to talk." "About what?" Chief asked. "About you," Taylor said quietly, listening to the Wraith transmission through a neural interface. "They're asking for an audience with the warriors who killed Queen Celestia. They want to understand the threat Infinity represents." "And?" She paused, her expression troubled. "They're offering information about something they call the Great Awakening. They claim it threatens Wraith and humans alike." Chief exchanged glances with Shepard. The Wraith were predators, liars, and manipulators. But they were also pragmatic. If something scared them enough to request human alliance, "Set up the meeting," Shepard decided. "But we do it on our terms, in a location we control." "And Chief?" His expression was grim. "I want you there. If this goes sideways, I need someone who won't hesitate to do what's necessary." "Understood," Chief replied. As preparations began for humanity's first formal negotiation with a Wraith Queen, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 checked his weapons, ran diagnostics on his armor, and prepared for the possibility that diplomacy might fail. Because, in his experience, when ancient enemies came asking for help, the real threat was usually something far worse than either side could handle alone. And in the Pegasus Galaxy, far worse was a category with terrifying depth. The negotiations took place on M7G677, a neutral world that had been abandoned centuries ago when the Wraith had culled its population to extinction. Ancient ruins dotted the landscape, crumbling spires that spoke of a civilization destroyed before it could reach its potential. Chief found the symbolism grimly appropriate. humans and Wraith, meeting among the bones of their shared history of violence. Atlantis had erected a prefabricated structure at the base of the largest ruin, equipped with ancient shield generators and enough firepower to turn the entire valley into a kill zone if negotiations failed. Chief stood in full Mjolnir armor, MA5D assault rifle mag-locked to his back, M6D Magnum holstered at his hip. Shepard flanked him in tactical vest and P90, while Tayla wore her usual combat attire. Her calm presence, a counterpoint to the tension radiating from every armed soldier. Infinity maintained geosynchronous orbit overhead, its weapons systems trained on the Wraith Hive ship that held position on the opposite side of the planet. Captain Lasky had been explicit in his orders. If the Wraith made any hostile move, Infinity would reduce their vessel to atoms before they could complete the action. "Remind me why we're doing this instead of just shooting them," Ronan muttered from his position near the entrance. Particle Magnum charged and ready. "Because sometimes the enemy of my enemy actually has useful intelligence," Shepard replied. "And because Tayla sensed genuine fear in their transmission. Wraith don't scare easily." The Wraith delegation arrived via Wraith Dart, the organic ship settling onto the valley floor with a hiss of displaced atmosphere. The culling beam remained inactive, another gesture of non-aggression that made Chief's tactical instincts scream warnings about deception. The Dart's side membrane peeled open, and 3 figures emerged. The first 2 were standard Wraith warriors, pale, predatory, their feeding hands flexing unconsciously as they detected human life signs. They carried no visible weapons, though the chief knew the feeding mechanism itself was weapon enough. The warriors positioned themselves protectively around the third figure. The Wraith Queen was simultaneously beautiful and horrifying. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her white hair flowing past her shoulders, her face a mixture of human features and something utterly alien. She wore elaborate organic armor that seemed to be part of her biology, and her eyes ancient, intelligent, and filled with predatory calculation fixed on Chief with unsettling focus. "You are the warrior who killed my sister Queen Celestia," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that suggested telepathic projection alongside vocalization. "You wore metal skin and wielded weapons that tore through her hive like it was flesh. I am Queen Seraph of the Northern Territory. I come seeking alliance." The word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. McKay, monitoring from Atlantis via comlink, made a strangled noise. Did she just say alliance? A Wraith Queen wants to ally with humans? This is either the biggest intelligence coup in Pegasus history or the most elaborate trap ever conceived. Chief stepped forward, his armored form dwarfing even the Queen's impressive height. "Define alliance. Your species feeds on humans. Our species considers that an act of war. The terms seem incompatible." Queen Seraph's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on a human. "Direct. I appreciate that. Very well, warrior. I will be equally direct," she gestured, and one of her guards produced a holographic projector Wraith technology that displayed a 3-dimensional star chart of Pegasus. Red markers appeared throughout the galaxy, concentrated in the core regions. Hundreds of them. "What are we looking at?" Shepard asked, though his voice suggested he already suspected the answer. "Hive ships," Seraph replied. "Not the scattered territorial hives you know. These are ancient vessels that have been hibernating in deep space for over 10,000 years. They are waking. We call it the Great Awakening, and it heralds the end of everything Wraith and humans alike." Chief studied the holographic display with tactical precision. If the data was accurate, they were looking at over 300 Wraith Hive ships preparing to emerge from hibernation. The current 47 active hives would be outnumbered 7-1. And if those ancient hives were as large as historical records suggested, why are they waking now? Tayla asked, her voice steady despite the implications. "Because you woke them," Seraph said, turning to Chief. When you destroyed Celestia's hive, the psychic scream of her death echoed across the Wraith collective consciousness. The ancient queens interpreted it as a signal that abundant feeding grounds had been discovered. They are waking to claim what they believe is a galaxy ripe for culling. "So we're looking at a Wraith civil war," Shepard said. "Ancient hives versus modern hives for feeding territory. And humans caught in the middle. Worse than the Civil War," Seraph corrected. "The ancient queens remember the war against the ancients. They fought beings who could ascend to higher planes of existence. They developed strategies, weapons, and tactics designed to kill gods." Her eyes fixed on Infinity's position in orbit, visible as a bright star in the daylight sky. "Your metal ship killed one hive. The ancient fleets destroyed entire civilizations. They will not stop until every source of food, every human world, every settlement, every city has been consumed." Chief's tactical analysis was running worst-case scenarios. 300 ancient hive ships, each potentially more advanced than modern variants, coordinating across the galaxy in a feeding frenzy that would make the past 10,000 years of culling look restrained by comparison. Infinity and Atlantis together couldn't engage more than a dozen hives simultaneously. Against 300. "What do you propose?" Chief asked. "An alliance of necessity," Seraph replied. "The modern hives, those of us who have maintained feeding territories and sustainable culling practices, cannot defeat the ancient fleets alone. You humans have technology we don't understand, weapons that kill queens, and the tactical cunning to have survived this long in Pegasus. Together, we eliminate the ancient threat. Then," she paused, choosing words carefully, "then, we renegotiate the terms of coexistence." "Coexistence!" Ronan spat the word like a curse. "You mean you promise to cull us slower?" "I mean we establish territories, agreements, and limitations. The ancient way was unsustainable feeding until worlds were barren, then moving to fresh territory. Modern queens learned to be farmers rather than hunters. We maintain populations, cull selectively, and ensure long-term food supply." Seraph's expression was alien, but her logic was coldly practical. "It is still monstrous by your standards. But it is survival for both species rather than extinction for one." Chief understood the calculation immediately. The Wraith were offering a deal with the devil help them fight the greater threat, and they'd reduce culling to levels that allowed human populations to sustain themselves. It was horrific. It was pragmatic. It was probably the best offer they'd get. "Absolutely not." McKay's voice crackled over the comm. "We are not allying with the Wraith. They're parasites, monsters. We should be working on the retrovirus, not negotiating with—" Shepard muted the comm channel. "Chief, your assessment?" Chief ran the tactical mathematics. 300 ancient hives versus 47 modern hives plus Infinity and Atlantis. Without the alliance, humanity's odds of survival dropped below 15%. With it, they climbed to perhaps 40% if they could coordinate effectively and exploit the ancient hive's lack of knowledge about current human capabilities. From a purely tactical standpoint, the alliance provides strategic advantage, Chief said. But it requires verification of the Queen's claims and insurance against betrayal. "What kind of insurance?" Shepard asked. Chief turned to Seraph. "You want our help against the ancient fleets. In exchange, we require 3 things. First, immediate cessation of culling operations against any world under Atlantis protection. Second, full intelligence sharing about ancient hive capabilities, weaknesses, and command structures. Third, you provide Wraith prisoners for our scientists to study." Seraph's eyes narrowed. "Prisoners for study? You mean test subjects for biological weapons? I mean ensuring we have leverage if you betray this alliance." Chief replied flatly, "You're asking us to trust a species that has slaughtered billions. Trust requires verification, and consequences for betrayal. The Queen was silent for a long moment, her telepathic senses probably probing for deception. Finally, she inclined her head fractionally. Acceptable. But understand, warrior, if you develop weapons against my kind and use them outside our agreement, the modern hives will unite against you regardless of the ancient threat. Mutually assured destruction concentrates the mind wonderfully. Agreed, Chief said, because it was the only logical response. Shepard looked between Chief and the Wraith Queen, clearly uncomfortable with the entire negotiation but unable to fault the tactical logic. How long until the ancient fleets arrive in force? 6 months. Perhaps 8, Seraph replied. They will wake in stages as they receive the psychic signal. The first vanguard elements are already active 10 hives in the core sectors. They have already culled 3 worlds to extinction, taking every human regardless of age or sustainability. That is how you will know ancient hives from modern ones. They feed indiscriminately, completely, leaving nothing alive. Chief made the tactical decision that command situations required, even when every moral instinct screamed against it. We'll coordinate with Atlantis Command and Infinity's officers. If your intelligence is verified and you honor the ceasefire against protected worlds, we'll formalize the alliance. But Queen Seraph, his voice hardened into the tone that had sent Covenant commanders fleeing. If you betray us, I will personally ensure that your hive suffers the same fate as Celestia's. Are we clear? The Queen's smile showed too many teeth. Perfectly clear, warrior. I look forward to seeing if you are as dangerous as your reputation suggests. She gestured to her guards. I will provide coordinates to an ancient hive ship that is currently dormant, but beginning activation protocols. Consider it a gesture of good faith and an opportunity to test your weapons against what is coming. The Wraith delegation returned to their dart and departed, leaving the human forces alone among the ruins of a dead civilization. We just made a deal with the Wraith, Shepard said quietly. History is going to judge this moment harshly. History is written by survivors, Chief replied. Our priority is ensuring there are humans left to write it. Back on Atlantis, the debriefing room erupted into controlled chaos. McKay was vocally opposed, arguing for immediate development of the retrovirus and total war against all Wraith. Others pointed out that fighting on 2 fronts, modern hives and ancient fleets, would be suicide. The ethical debates raged for hours. Captain Lasky listened to all arguments before making his decision. We verify the Queen's intelligence. If the ancient hives are real and represent the threat she claims, we formalize the alliance. But we also accelerate research on every weapon system we can develop, including the retrovirus as a contingency option. If the Wraith betray us, we need the ability to end them permanently. Chief stood in Infinity's observation deck later that night, watching Lantia's stars through the viewport. Cortana would have had opinions about this alliance, strong ones, probably cautioning him about trusting the enemy. But Cortana wasn't here, and Chief had learned long ago that war rarely offered clean choices. You did the right thing, Palmer said, joining him at the viewport. Tactically, morally, it's all a mess. But you gave humanity a fighting chance. That's all any soldier can do. The ancient hives will be harder to kill than the modern ones, Chief observed. They've fought ascended beings. They know how to counter advanced technology. This won't be like the first battle. No, Palmer agreed. It'll be worse. But we've got something they don't expect. What's that? Palmer's smile was sharp as broken glass. A Spartan too who's made a career out of winning impossible battles, and 17,000 UNSC personnel who are really tired of being pushed around by aliens who think humans are prey. Chief allowed himself the smallest acknowledgement. Then we make sure they learn differently. The coordinates Queen Seraph provided led to a system 3 days away by Infinity's sublight engines. Scouts confirmed the presence of an ancient hive ship dormant, but with power signatures beginning to spike as it woke from 10,000-year hibernation. It would be the perfect test. Humanity's combined forces against a preview of what was coming. If they could destroy one ancient hive, they had a chance against the fleet. If they failed, Chief checked his weapons one final time, loaded fresh ammunition, and prepared for the kind of battle that would determine whether humanity survived in Pegasus or became another extinct civilization among the ruins. The Wraith had ruled this galaxy for 10 millennia through fear and feeding. It was time to teach them that prey could have teeth sharp enough to bite back. And if 300 ancient hives wanted to wake up to a galaxy at war, humanity would give them exactly that. The ancient hive ship, designated Target Omega, hung in the void like a monument to prehistoric nightmares. It dwarfed even the modern hives Chief had encountered. 5 kilometers of organic architecture that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, suggesting neural activity spreading through dormant systems. Power readings indicated the vessel was approximately 40% awake, its organic processors slowly bootstrapping 10,000 years of hibernation protocols. Chief stood in Infinity's Combat Information Center alongside Captain Lasky, studying the tactical hologram with the focus of someone who understood this engagement would set the template for the war to come. Commander Palmer coordinated Spartan deployments while Dr. Glassman monitored the experimental weapons systems they developed specifically for this mission. Atlantis reports ready status, the communications officer announced. Colonel Shepard confirms 300 drones loaded and share interface nominal. Puddle jumper strike teams are standing by. UNSC strike force? Lasky asked. All Spartan fire teams ready for boarding operations, Palmer replied. Long swords armed with nuclear-tipped missiles. Mac guns loaded with specialized ammunition, Dr. Glassman's organic disruption rounds. We're as ready as we're going to be, sir. Chief studied the ancient hive's configuration. Unlike modern variants that maintained aggressive postures, this vessel had condensed into a defensive hibernation shell. Armored plates, overlapping to protect critical systems. Weapons, ports sealed. Even the hangar bays closed. It was like a fortress that had locked itself down to wait out the centuries. Weaknesses? Chief asked. Glassman highlighted several points on the hologram. The organic armor is thicker than modern hives, but the transition between hibernation and active status creates vulnerabilities. As systems wake up, they draw massive power from the core reactors. If we can disrupt that power flow during the activation sequence, we might trigger cascade failures that prevent full awakening, essentially giving it a heart attack while it's waking up. McKay added, via comlink from Atlantis. Poetic and tactically sound. The trick is timing hit too early, and the redundant systems compensate. Too late, and it fully activates with weapons, shields, and 10,000 warriors ready to repel boarders. What's our window? Lasky asked. Approximately 18 minutes from when we began the attack, Glassman replied. That's how long the latest power spike suggests until full combat readiness. Chief ran combat simulations in his head. 18 minutes to penetrate 5 kilometers of hostile ship, navigate organic corridors that would actively resist intrusion, locate and destroy the primary power distribution nodes, and extract before the hive either died or went fully active. It was doable barely with the resources they had. Recommended approach, Chief said, marking vectors on the hologram. Infinity engages at maximum range with Mach fire, and missiles draw attention and create breaches in the hull armor. Atlantis follows with precision drone strikes targeting the exposed power conduits. Simultaneously, Spartan boarding teams insert through the breaches and push toward the reactor core. We set demolition charges with deadman switches. If we don't extract within the timeline, the charges detonate automatically. Suicide mission, Palmer observed without judgment. The teams might not make it out. Spartans are equipped for high-risk insertion and extraction, Chief replied. And we won't be alone. He highlighted additional insertion points. Request Colonel Shepard's team provide support. Their ancient gene activation abilities might give us access to internal systems that could speed navigation. Shepard's voice came over the comm, dry humor masking the steel beneath. You're asking me to board an ancient Wraith Hive ship that's waking up, navigate hostile territory while fighting whatever's inside, And somehow find the self-destruct button in under 18 minutes? Affirmative. Yeah. Okay. Sounds like a normal Tuesday. Rodney's going to hate this. I'm standing right here and yes, I already hate it, McKay protested. This is insane. We should be hitting it from orbit until it's debris, not sending people inside. Orbital bombardment might not penetrate deep enough to guarantee a kill, Chief explained. Ancient hives are designed to survive engagement with ascended beings. We need precision strikes against specific targets that external fire can't reliably reach. Lasky made his decision with the certainty of command. We execute Chief's plan. Spartan fire teams Osiris and Majestic will lead the boarding action. Colonel Shepard's team provides technical support. Infinity and Atlantis maintain external assault to keep the hive's attention divided. All teams, you have 18 minutes from breach to extraction. Make them count. The battle began with Infinity's opening salvo. 1,200-ton slugs of depleted uranium accelerated to relativistic speeds, each one carrying kinetic energy equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons. They struck the ancient hive's armored shell with the force of concentrated violence, punching craters dozens of meters deep. The organic armor tried to regenerate, but Glassman's specialized rounds contained biotoxins that disrupted cellular cohesion. The wounds stayed open, bleeding green ichor into vacuum. Ancient drone weapons followed, Shepard's mind guiding 300 precision strikes that exploited the Mac-created breaches. The drones penetrated deep into the hive's infrastructure and detonated against power conduits that Atlantis' sensors had identified as critical. Secondary explosions rippled through the vessel's interior as organic capacitors overloaded. The ancient hive began to wake in earnest, its survival instincts overriding the cautious activation sequence. Weapons ports unsealed, bioplasma cannons charging with terrifying speed. But the coordinated human assault had bought precious minutes. The hive was waking, damaged, bleeding, and vulnerable. Pelican Alpha, you are going for insertion, Palmer transmitted. All fire teams, execute. Chief led Fire Team Osiris through the breach in a Pelican dropship that threaded through the hive's defensive fire with pilot skill that would have impressed any UNSC veteran. The dropship punched through the hull opening and deposited 8 Spartans directly into the ancient hive's interior before peeling away to provide air support. The corridors were a nightmare of organic architecture on a scale that dwarfed modern hives. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, thick as Chief's armored arm. The floors were chitinous plates that shifted underfoot, and the air was thick with organic compounds that Chief's armor filtration struggled to process. Everything was larger, older, designed for creatures that had fought ascended beings and survived. Sensors reading massive biosignatures throughout the vessel, Spartan Locke reported, his motion tracker painting a terrifying picture. Thousands of Wraith warriors are waking up. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they're combat effective. Then, we move fast, Chief replied. Standard breach formation. Locke, you're on point. Tanaka, rear security. I'll handle navigation. They pushed deeper into the hive at combat speed, their Mjolnir armor turning them into armored fists punching through organic tissue. The first Wraith they encountered were half awake, stumbling from hibernation pods with their feeding hands extending reflexively. The Spartans cut them down with clinical efficiency-controlled bursts that overwhelmed regeneration before the creatures could even understand they were under attack. Shepard's team inserted through a secondary breach, McKay frantically scanning with ancient sensors, while Ronan and Taylor provided security. Chief, I'm picking up what looks like a central power distribution node about 800 meters from your position. It's heavily shielded, but if we can get access... Transmit coordinates, Chief ordered. Fire Team Osiris will handle demolition. Colonel, your team needs to find a way to disable the hive's regeneration systems. If it can heal faster than we damage it, this entire operation fails. On it, Shepard confirmed. There should be something like a central nervous system, a biological control nexus that coordinates healing. If we can disrupt it, The teams pushed through the hive's interior while outside. Infinity and Atlantis maintained relentless assault. The ancient vessel was fighting back now, its bioplasma cannons hammering at Infinity's shields, while dart fighters launched in swarms from newly opened hangar bays. But the UNSC ship's point defense systems and longsword interceptors created a killing field that turned the space around the hive into a debris cloud of destroyed organic fighters. Chief's team reached the power distribution node after 6 minutes of brutal corridor fighting. The chamber was massive, a cathedral-sized space filled with organic conduits that pulsed with the hive's life energy. Wraith warriors were streaming toward their position now, fully awake and coordinated, their feeding hands extended and weapons charging. "Tanaka, Buck, establish a defensive perimeter," Chief ordered. "Lock, veil, plant the charges. We've got 12 minutes." The Spartans executed with the precision of operators who'd trained together for years. Tanaka and Buck created a choke point at the chamber entrance, their assault rifles creating a wall of fire that even regenerating Wraith couldn't penetrate quickly enough. Lock and Veil moved through the chamber with demolition expertise, placing shaped charges at structural weak points that would create maximum damage with minimum explosive yield. Chief coordinated both efforts while monitoring the overall tactical situation through his HUD. Shepard's team had found the biological control nexus, and McKay was attempting to interface with it using ancient technology. Palmer was repositioning Fireteam Majestic to cover their extraction route. The timeline was tight but manageable. Then the ancient hive deployed its trump card. The biosignatures that appeared on Chief's motion tracker were unlike anything he'd encountered: massive, moving with purpose, and radiating energy signatures that suggested augmented Wraith. Enhanced warriors, perhaps, or specialized units designed specifically to repel boarders. "Contact!" Tanaka called out. "We've got hostiles incoming that are— oh shit, they're big!" The creatures that emerged into the chamber made standard Wraith warriors look frail. They stood over 8 feet tall, their bodies augmented with what looked like organic armor grafted directly onto their biology. Their feeding hands glowed with intensified bioluminescence, and they carried massive bioplasma weapons that would normally require mounting points. Chief had encountered hunters during the Covenant War, massive armored creatures that required concentrated fire to bring down. These Wraith variants reminded him of hunters, but faster and regenerating. "Concentrated fire, targeting limbs and joints," Chief ordered, opening up with his assault rifle. The armor-piercing rounds punched through the creature's organic plating, but they kept coming, their regeneration accelerating to compensate for damage. Ronan's voice crackled over the comm from Shepard's position. "Those are ancient Wraith shock troops. I've only seen them in historical records. They fought the Ancients' warrior drones. Standard weapons barely slow them down." "Then we use non-standard weapons," Chief replied. He maglocked his rifle and drew his combat knife, not the standard issue blade, but a specialized weapon he'd acquired from Infinity's armory, its edge coated with ancient alloy that disrupted organic healing. "Spartans, switch to melee weapons and energy systems. Exploit regeneration lag with overwhelming damage." The Spartan 2s and IVs adapted instantly, drawing combat knives and energy blades while maintaining suppressive fire. When the shock troops closed to melee range, which they did with terrifying speed, the Spartans met them with augmented strength and tactical precision. Chief ducked under a feeding hand strike, his combat knife punching through the creature's wrist joint and severing the appendage. The shock trooper shrieked, its regeneration struggling to regrow the complex biological structure of the feeding mechanism. Chief followed up with an armored fist to the creature's skull, the impact breaking bone and pulping tissue faster than it could heal. The other Spartans engaged with similar brutality, their enhanced strength and Mjolnir armor turning them into forces of nature that matched the Wraith shock troops' augmented biology. It was the kind of close-quarters battle that Spartans excelled at, pure violence applied with tactical precision. "Charges set," Locke reported. "Timers armed, deadman switches active. We are go for extraction." "All teams fall back to extraction points," Chief ordered. "Colonel Shepard, status?" "McKay's done whatever mad science he does. and the hive's regeneration is shutting down, Shepard replied, breathing hard from combat exertion. We're moving to extraction now, but we've got a lot of very angry wrath between us and the exit. Chief checked the timer, 9 minutes remaining until the charges detonated. Plenty of time for Spartans to extract, but Shepard's team were unaugmented humans who just fought through hostile territory. They needed support. Fire Team Osiris. Secure Shepard's extraction route. Chief transmitted. I'll provide rear guard action. Chief, you can't hold this position alone, Palmer protested. There are hundreds of Wraith converging on your location. Spartans never die, Commander. Chief replied, the old saying carrying weight even across universes. They're just missing in action. Extract the teams. I'll follow when I've bought enough time. He didn't wait for acknowledgement. Chief positioned himself at the chamber's primary entrance, assault rifle reloaded and grenade supply ready. The shock troops were rallying, preparing for another assault, and behind them came waves of standard Wraith warriors flowing through the corridors like a biological tide. Chief opened fire with methodical precision, each burst dropping a Wraith before its regeneration could compensate. He fired grenades into cluster formations, the explosions creating temporary barriers of corpses that slowed the advance. When his rifle clicked empty, he transitioned to his Magnum, the powerful handgun punching through Wraith skulls with devastating efficiency. The timer hit 5 minutes. 4, 3. Shepard's team and Fire Team Osiris were clear, extracted by pelicans that braved the hive's defensive fire to retrieve the boarding parties. Only Chief remained, a lone Spartan holding against an army because someone needed to ensure the mission succeeded. At 2 minutes, Chief activated the manual detonation override and sprinted for the extraction point. His shields were at 18%, ammunition nearly depleted, armor scored with feeding hand attempts and bioplasma burns. But he'd bought the time needed, and the charges were counting down with mathematical certainty. He burst through the hull breach to find Ronan waiting in a pelican. The Satan's hand extended. Come on, Spartan! Time to go! Chief grabbed the offered hand, pulled himself aboard, and the pelican's engines screamed as they cleared the hive's hull with seconds to spare. The demolition charges detonated simultaneously, their shaped explosives channeling force directly into the ancient hive's power distribution nodes. The massive vessel convulsed as critical systems failed in cascade, organic conduits rupturing and spilling life energy into surrounding tissue. Without regeneration to compensate and with its power grid collapsing, the ancient hive began to die for real. Infinity's final max salvo punched through the weakened hull and penetrated to the reactor core. The ancient hive ship exploded from within, a 5-kilometer organic structure tearing itself apart in a spectacular display of secondary explosions and venting atmosphere. When the debris cloud cleared, Target Omega was gone. Nothing remained but scattered biomass tumbling through the void. Confirmed kill, Lasky transmitted. All teams accounted for. Chief? Excellent work. Chief watched the debris field from the Pelican, running post-mission analysis on what they'd learned. The ancient hives were tougher, more advanced, with specialized units and enhanced defenses. But they could be killed with coordinated assault and precise targeting. The tactic would work again, at least for a while, until the ancient queens adapted. 1 down, Chief said quietly. 299 to go. Ronan laughed, clapping him on the armored shoulder with enough force to stagger a normal person. You know, Chief, when you first showed up through our gate, I thought you might be all armor and no heart. I was wrong. You fight like a cicada, no quit, no surrender. Just doing the job, Chief replied. Yeah, Ronan agreed. But you do it well. Back on Atlantis, the debriefing confirmed what everyone had suspected. The war against the ancient Wraith fleets would be brutal, costly, and require every advantage humanity could muster. But they'd proven something critical with coordination between Infinity's firepower and Atlantis's ancient technology. With Spartans and SG teams working together, they could win individual engagements. The question was whether they could win enough of them before the full ancient fleet woke up. Queen Seraph transmitted congratulations and updated intelligence. 17 ancient hives had now fully activated, with more waking every week. The modern Wraith hives were beginning to coordinate defensive alliances, recognizing that the ancient queens would consume them as readily as humans if given the opportunity. The galaxy was sliding toward total war, ancient Wraith versus modern Wraith versus humanity, with billions of lives hanging in the balance. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 stood in Atlantis' observation deck, watching stars that weren't his own, in a galaxy far from home, preparing to fight enemies that had terrified civilizations for 10,000 years. He thought of the UNSC, Earth, and the wars he'd left behind. Thought of Cortana's voice reminding him that soldiers fought so others didn't have to. Thought of every battle he'd survived when the odds said he shouldn't. This was just another mission. Longer duration, higher stakes, different enemy. But the principle remained the same. Protect humanity, no matter the cost. Infinity's crew had voted. Overwhelmingly, they'd chosen to stay and fight rather than risk experimental slipspace repairs. 17,000 UNSC personnel, stranded in another universe, had decided their mission was here now, defending Pegasus Galaxy's human populations against extinction. Chief approved of that decision. It was what he would have chosen. The war was just beginning. The ancient Wraith fleets were waking. The modern hives would betray the Alliance the moment it became convenient. And somewhere in Atlantis' database, the retrovirus research continued a potential solution that carried its own terrible weight. But tonight, they'd won. One ancient hive destroyed, tactics proven, alliances forged in combat's crucible. Tomorrow would bring new battles. Chief would be ready. He always was. 6 months after Infinity's arrival in the Pegasus Galaxy, Master Chief stood in Atlantis' gate room watching the final preparations for what military historians would later call the Coalition's first strike. The alliance between Infinity, Atlantis, and Queen Seraph's modern Wraith hives had evolved from desperate necessity into a functioning, if fragile, military partnership. Together, they destroyed 9 ancient hives through coordinated assaults that combined UNSC firepower, ancient technology, and Wraith intelligence. But the ancient fleets kept waking. Current estimates suggested over 200 hives were now active in the galaxy's core, feeding indiscriminately and pushing toward populated regions like a biological tsunami. The mathematics remained brutal, but they'd bought time to train, integrate technologies, and develop weapons that made even ancient queens hesitate. Shepard approached, his team assembled for another gate mission. "Ready for this, Chief?" "Always," Chief replied. His Mjolnir armor bore new scars from 6 months of continuous operations, wraith-feeding hand burns, bioplasma scoring, combat knife marks where he'd fought creatures that shouldn't exist. But the armor still functioned, and so did he. The target, ancient hive ship that's been raiding the outer colonies. Intel suggests it's attempting to reach Lantia, probably heard about Infinity, and wants to test itself against us. Shepard's expression was grim. "They're learning, Chief. Adapting to our tactics. This one's fielding new biological weapons we haven't encountered before." Chief had expected that. War was evolution in fast-forward, adapt or die, with the enemy learning as quickly as you did. Then we adapt faster. Ronan joined them, his usual grin replaced by warrior focus. "Heard the Spartans and 4s took down 3 ancient shock troops in hand-to-hand yesterday. Your people are learning our galaxy's rules. And your people are learning ours," Chief acknowledged. Atlantis personnel now trained alongside UNSC Marines in boarding tactics that combined gate travel mobility with Infinity's orbital support. The cross-training had created hybrid units that operated with lethal efficiency neither force could achieve alone. McKay hurried in, tablet displaying the latest research. "Chief, before you go, the retrovirus project. We've achieved functional prototype status. Lab tests on Wraith tissue samples show 97% effectiveness at disrupting the feeding enzyme. If we weaponize this, he trailed off, the ethical weight evident in his expression. Dr. McKay, Chief said quietly, keep researching, but deployment authorization stays with Captain Lasky and Colonel Shepard jointly. That weapon only gets used if we're facing extinction with no other options. McKay nodded, relief and responsibility warring in his eyes. Understood. Just knowing we have it, if we need it, makes us as dangerous as the ancient queens, Chief finished. Which is exactly the kind of threat that makes enemies reconsider aggression. The Stargate activated, chevrons locking in sequence, the event horizon establishing with its familiar shimmer. Chief checked his weapons, MA-5D, loaded ammunition sufficient, energy sword charged from hybrid ancient UNSC technology that McKay had developed. 6 months ago, he'd been a stranger in this galaxy. Now he moved through it, with the same lethal competence he'd brought to 30 years of UNSC service. Fire Team Osiris, standard insertion. Chief transmitted to his Spartan unit aboard Infinity. Colonel Shepard's team will provide ancient technology interface. Target is the Hive's organic control nexus. The timeline is 20 minutes from breach to extraction. Copy that, Chief, Locke replied. We'll be ready when you call for orbital support. Captain Lasky's voice joined the channel. Chief, Infinity is in position. Mac guns loaded. Drone coordination with Atlantis confirmed. When you light up that hive, we'll make sure it burns. Chief stepped toward the Stargate, Shepard's team flanking him. Through the shimmering event horizon lay another world, another battle, another chance to prove that humanity belonged in this galaxy not as prey but as apex predators who fought back. Indeed, Teal'c's voice echoed in Chief's memory, the Jaffa warrior who'd helped establish Earth's first gate teams, whose philosophy of resistance against false gods had become the template for Pegasus operations. Chief had read the historical files, understood the legacy. Now he was writing the next chapter. The ancient Wraith had ruled through fear for 10 millennia. The modern queens maintained power through pragmatic culling. But a new force had entered Pegasus humanity, backed by UNSC technology, ancient weapons, Spartan warriors, and the stubborn refusal to accept extinction as inevitable. Queen Seraph's latest intelligence suggested the ancient fleets were consolidating for a major offensive, potentially targeting Lantia itself to destroy Infinity before the ship could eliminate more hives. Let them come. Atlantis's shields would hold, Infinity's guns would fire, and if the ancient queens wanted to test themselves against Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, they'd learn the same lesson the Covenant had. Spartans didn't lose. They just ran out of enemies. Chief walked through the Stargate, his team following, and the wormhole took them across light years in an instant. Another mission, another battle, another day of defending humanity against impossible odds. He'd been doing it for 30 years. He'd do it for 30 more if that's what the mission required. Because Spartans never died. They just found new wars to fight, new galaxies to defend, new enemies to teach that humanity's will to survive exceeded any predator's hunger. The ancient Wraith were about to learn that lesson personally. Chief almost felt sorry for them. Almost